Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen ignored me her whole life, and now she's demanding I pay for her college tuition. I got pregnant with my daughter, Emma, at 18. I lived at home and was going to college and working. When I got pregnant, my parents kicked me out and I had to move in with my ex. I dropped out of school and quit my job to take care of Emma because my ex told me that he would support me. When I was 22, he was 24, he graduated law school. He told me I had to move out because he wanted to find a wife. My parents had forgiven me, so I moved back in with them. We didn't have a court order, but we split custody pretty much 25-75, with me having more time. When Emma was 6, he married his now wife. She couldn't have any more kids and wanted Emma and her daughter to be sisters. Over the next 3 years, Emma spent less and less time with me. She'd throw a fit if I tried to pick her up. They gave her things I couldn't. When she was 8, she told me that she hated me. I never blamed her for the lies her father put in her head because even though I lived at home, I was in college and working and did my best to provide for her, but obviously they could do more. They took me to court when she was 10, and surprise, the lawyer and his doctor wife with their $1 million home beat me in court. They painted me out to be this horrible parent, and Emma backed them up. They got primary custody and I got visitation, but Emma refused to see me. I gave her money and gifts, but she didn't want me in her life. When I was 30, I met my husband. He is the most amazing man I have ever met. He's seen me struggle with this and has been very supportive. He has a daughter Emma's age and a son who is 5 years younger. They had lost their mom and were very welcoming and loving. They treated me like their mom. Emma made zero efforts to get to know my husband and stepkids. Emma and stepdaughter just graduated high school this past May, and my parents also recently passed and gave me their estate since I am an only child. I have decided to pay for my stepdaughter's entire college tuition and buy her a car and pay for an apartment. Emma contacted me a week ago and told me she missed me and wanted to see me. This shocked me, seeing as we haven't talked in a year. We met up and she told me that she heard my parents had passed and asked if she could have some money to pay for college. I was shocked and said, "Well, what about your dad and his wife?" She said, "My mom and dad want me to pay for this on my own to teach me responsibility, and I believe I am entitled to money seeing as you ruined my life." I was very hurt and I told her, "After years of ignoring me and telling me that I'm not your mother, you demand money from me? I am not your wallet." My husband is telling me what I did was right, but my ex is telling me that I'm a real jerk and I owe this to her. My stepdaughter feels bad and offered her college money because my daughter and her friends have been harassing her. I said, "Absolutely not. That is your money." Am I the jerk for not giving my daughter money after ignoring me her whole life? What do you think? Should OP pay for her daughter's college or not? Please let us know. Oh, I can't wait to read these comments. Karen tries to steal a solar panel and her entitled brat decides to attack me for no reason. You know, I've been lucky with not encountering Karens up until recently. Honestly, I thought the internet over-exaggerated about these crazy entitled people. I came to the sad truth, these people do exist, and my faith in humanity dropped just a tad more. And just a little more as I'm typing this, coming to the realization that some of these people are raising the next generation. Anyways, I work in the solar industry, mainly residential, as a service technician. Whenever something goes wrong with a solar PV system, I'm the guy they send out to fix it. I've been doing this long enough to have the knowledge and skills to complete an entire installation by myself, with roof pitch and module count within reason, that is. Anyways, I went out with one of the crews for an installation as they were short a few guys. So myself and 2 other technicians I work with volunteered to help them out. Seemed like a pretty standard job. 40 plus panels, not a steep roof. Okay, we should be in and out, time permitting we're finished, and back in the shop by 4 to 5 p.m. So we arrive at the house in what looked to be a pretty rich neighborhood. Homeowner greeted us and even offered to grab us all breakfast. It was a good day so far. So we set up an exclusion zone to prevent anyone from coming too close to the house, as equipment, tools, etc. will fall off the roof. I'm on the ground, working on building the electrical portion of the system. I've got my music playing, all is good. I've got myself in a good rhythm. I then noticed a kid, he could have been no older than 7, dart past the red tape we had put up and head towards a ladder to the roof and try to start playing on it. Like a human being with common sense, I ran over and told the kid he couldn't play on this, and that red tape was up so he couldn't get hurt. And the moment you've all been waiting for, Karen appears. Man, she had it all. The haircut, the glasses, and she had the worst spray tan I've personally ever seen. It's summer, people. Just go out and get some sun. Karen: "Don't talk to my son like that. He just wants to play with your tools." Me: "Ma'am, I can't allow him to play with our tools. I also can't have him or yourself pass that red tape. We put it up for your safety." "Oh, he'll be fine. Just tell your workers not to drop anything." Me, who had just lost a couple of brain cells from her response: "I can tell them not to drop anything all day, but that doesn't exclude the fact accidents happen, and we cannot risk anyone who is a non-worker being hurt. Now please leave. This is an active work site." Karen: "I can do as I please, and so can my son. We're friends with these people, and they let my son play in their yard. You should take a better direction at talking to potential customers, you know." Me: "Ma'am, until I have site plans for an installation on your house, how I speak to you is not a concern I have. If I sound cross, I apologize, but I have now told you twice that I cannot have you pass that red tape. So I'm asking once again, please take your son and leave before either of you get hurt. This is an active work site." She grabbed her kid's arms and stormed off, while also tearing off a piece of the exclusion zone tape and storming over to her house 2 doors down. I stood by our trailer to take a deep breather and began chain smoking. I try not to get stressed out so much, being my job is already stressful as it is, but I have zero patience for people with no common sense, especially if they're a parent. A little while later, panels are prepped, roof is based out. For anyone who knows about solar installations, we used a rackless system instead of actual rails. We're now just finishing up the electrical before placing the panels into position. I'm running between the basement and the outside area. I get back to outside, punching in some wires, when I hear one of the guys yelling from the roof: "Hey kid, what are you doing?" That immediately caught my attention, as I thought the little kid had run past the exclusion zone tape once again. But my eyes caught a guy running down the road with a solar panel in tow. He thankfully wasn't very fast because he was holding the panel. I darted over to this kid with one of our solar panels and attempted to rip it away from him, while simultaneously trying not to let it hit the ground. I was able to get my hands on it, but this kid actually put up a fight and tossed the solar panel that put me in an awkward position, and he landed a hit to my chest. Not gonna lie, it did knock the wind out of me a little. But I went into full self-defense mode. The kid wanted to take another shot at me since I didn't completely go down. I immediately put him on the ground without throwing any punches. I didn't know how old this kid was, and I didn't want to get in any trouble for fighting him, but I wasn't about to let this guy continue to hit me. I'm thankful I have a little background in amateur MMA and a police officer dad and older brother who have taught me stuff over the years. So I had this guy down on the ground, pinned, and out comes Karen running, screaming like a banshee. The typical, "I'm calling the cops," and "You just assaulted my son." I really asked myself if this was happening. Me: "Your son was stealing a solar panel and he hit me in the chest. I had to defend myself." Karen: "I told him to grab the solar panel. My neighbor said I could take one and try it out and see how I like it." At this point, my guys are at my aid, and I tell them to call the cops and keep Karen away from me. As we wait for the cops to show up, this orange-skinned lunatic is ranting how she's going to sue all of us and blah blah blah. Cops arrived about 10 minutes later. I removed myself from the kid, and the cops split us all up to take our statements and such. Karen went with her story about how her neighbor said she could borrow a solar panel and try it out. Now, even if he did say that, which he didn't, you can't just let someone take a solar panel because they still belong to the company. Most people who buy solar finance the panels and pay them off over the course of the next couple years. Works a lot like financing a car. It gets to the point where the cop asks if I want to press charges for the assault. The guy whose house we were installing had a security camera system and caught the incident all on tape, so I gladly say yes. No idea when the court proceedings are going to be taking place. I honestly just want this over and to be done with. Edit. Just to clear up some questions in the comments, found out the dude who attacked me was actually 18, so charges are being filed against him. The homeowner was present during most of the ordeal, and he told us he's never talked to that lady in his life, and I have no idea what Karen's intentions were with the solar panel. If she planned to just slap it on her house, she's as stupid as she is entitled. I just got fired. So this afternoon, I head off to Old Blue to do a little grocery shopping. Over the past couple of months, they have been redoing the store. Stripped the floors, new paint, moved almost everything. So as I look for what I need, I run into a coworker that also works weekends at Old Blue. We chat for a while, and I asked him where they moved a few things to. So I take off to the aisle I need and run into another coworker, B, fresh from church, important later. We chat too, then I go to the next aisle. On that aisle, in all her 5'0", 250 plus, short blonde hair, black roots glory is, wait for it, a Karen. With my history with Karens here, I wanted to avoid her like the plague. However, she was right where I needed to be, and I was in red, so I thought surely I'll be okay. But no. Karen, excuse me, sir. Me, oh no. Karen, do you know where the boxes of brown sugar are? Me, I see the bags right here, but I don't see any boxes. Sorry. Can you look in the bag? I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't work here. Yes, you do. I saw you talking to other employee and the manager. Manager? I think to myself. Then I realized my buddy who had just left church looked like a manager. Me. Sorry, ma'am. I don't work here. I know them, and I was just talking to them. Karen. Can you just go look in the back? Sorry, ma'am. I can't. I do not work here. My buddy comes around the corner. Karen. Your worker is rude. He won't go look in the back for boxes of brown sugar. My buddy being quick on his feet. Oh, is he now? Karen. Yes. Buddy. OP, why won't you help this lady? Me. It's my day off, and I ain't doing a darn thing. How dare you talk to me like that? I don't care if you are off or not. If a customer asks you to do something, you do it. Me. If I ain't getting paid, I ain't doing nothing. And we start going back and forth for a good 5 minutes, making sure to be disrespectful as possible to my manager, until our other buddy who does work here comes up. The whole time, Karen has this grin on her face. Buddy. Associate, walk OP out. He doesn't work here. Winking. Associate. What? Buddy. OP does not work here. Please walk him out. Associate catches on. Let's go. Me. But nothing. Go. You don't work here. I hear Karen giggle. Then, as we walk away, I hear her talking to Buddy about how no one wants to work these days. So I yell at the top of my lungs, "Thanks, Karen!" And I say to Karen, "Hope you're happy, Karen. Go forget yourself." Then I tell Associate the entire story, and he just busts out laughing as we head to the front. I wait in a chair by the pharmacy until I see Karen check out and then go finish my shopping. Now we got a story to tell everyone at work tomorrow. The most fun I've ever had at Old Blue. Update. Texted my buddy and asked what happened after I left. He said she thanked him, badmouthed me some more, then asked him to look in the back for the boxes of brown sugar. He said, "Sure thing, ma'am," then just left her there. Update 2. My buddy that works at Old Blue called me after he got off. Apparently, when I thought Karen checked out, she went to customer service and got into it with the actual manager. She inquired why the nice manager that started helping her vanished. When he told her she must be confused because he was the only male manager on duty, apparently she got mad, called him some names. She was promptly removed from the store by security, which in this store has zero tolerance as they deal with a lot of bad customers, mainly shoplifters and homeless people that try to camp in the store and hassle customers for money. Note, this is the third I don't work here lady at the same store in the past 2.5 years. If my friends wouldn't have showed up, I would have probably handled it like I did my second time. But Buddy 1 decided to have some fun, so I played along and right or wrong enjoyed every minute after that point. Entitled old man asks me to help with a box, calls security when I refuse. This happened a while back. A little background. I'm a big guy, 6'6", 280, 9% body fat. I wear boots and leather, long hair, goatee, tattoos all over, the works. Even when I am sitting on my bike, I'm taller than most people I know. I often get mistaken for some motorbike gangster, although I'm not. I'm a veterinarian. I know I look like I can tighten truck tires by hand, but I handle newborn kittens every day. I'm married to the sweetest little thing and I adore her and she adores me. She has a daughter who's 7, which I gladly adopted, and Big Guy Jr. is on his way due October. Now that you have a visual, let's get to the story. Me, my wifey, and daughter went to an unnamed big store that sells disassembled do-it-yourself furniture. You figure it out. My wife, not yet pregnant back then, goes in with our daughter to find something or to ask something, I don't remember. I stay outside because it's windy and I like that. While she's in there, I see an old man pushing a cart with a box on it towards the parking lot. He looks around and waves at me. I wave back. I figure, hey, I'm a unique creature in my neighborhood. This guy must know me. So I smile and wave. He then waves at me to go to him. Immediately I thought, this dude needs help with the box. And I was right. Help a friendly neighbor? Any day. I go there, and as I'm walking, I realize I haven't seen this man in my life. And it becomes apparent the second he begins the conversation. Old man.
Young man, I was waving at you trying to get your attention all the way here. What are you so occupied by? Counting cracks in the pavement? I swear, this country is going to heck because they let people like you work.
Baffled, I try to say something, but he interrupts me.
Yeah, whatever. Keep your excuses for your supervisor in an hour. Now, get this box in my truck.
And I say, no. Apparently, this is something he had never experienced, and he makes the famous Pikachu face. He tries to get in my face, at least I think he believes that's what he's doing. I can almost hear his neck crack as he tries to look up at me. Old man.
And why not?
Trying to gather evidence, I guess. Me. Because 1, I don't work here. 2, I don't know what's in that box. And 3, I don't know you. I still can't believe that he mistook me for a parking lot boy. Old man.
I just bought that. I didn't steal it. And even if I did, you people are used to it.
And I realized that I look like 2 Danny Trejos on top of each other without the face scars. He continues.
I'm calling security to report you.
To which I agree. Security comes. The old man is spitting words trying to get his story across first. He still insists that I work there, and I refuse to help an elderly citizen, and I must be fired immediately. I explain that I'm just another customer like him, and it isn't my job to load boxes for every run-down guy in the parking lot. And at this point, the old man realizes this as well, but is standing his ground.
What's the big deal? You must respect your elders,
he said. I explained that I am certainly not helping an unknown man load an unknown box into an unknown car just like that. I could have helped him, yes, if only he had asked nicely, but since he didn't, I won't. He continues saying that when an elderly says jump, I should only say how high, that refusing to help an elder must be punished. What has this country come to? This new generation, yada yada. You know the tirade. And at this point, I'm tired of his entitlement. I see my wife and daughter exit the store and they're looking at us, and a light bulb in my mind goes ding. I turn my back so the old man can't see and put my finger on my mouth. Shush to them. She instantly knew something was going to happen. I quickly move towards them, grab my daughter, and start tickling her. She starts laughing, but it sounds more like screaming. I turn to the old man and shout to overcome the laughing and screaming. Excuse me, sir. Can you please hold them under this camera while I go get my windowless van? He was stunned. He backed up so fast, I swear his hair closed in front of his face, deformed in horror and fear. Security guy frantically taps himself looking for the radio. I drop my daughter to the ground and she stops her screaming, looks at me and says, "Oh, Daddy, I will get you for this," while still laughing and clutching my hand. My wife can't hold it in and bursts out laughing hard. The old man looks so shocked that bees could make honey in his mouth by the time he was able to close it. And I just say 3 words. Now you know. Without a word, he walked away. Security gathers himself and says his 3 words. That was epic. We are still laughing about it. Taking a break when the boss says so. A few years ago, I was working in a small bar in a mall. I hadn't been there that long, but I knew the place well enough after a couple of weeks. Me and a girl who had also recently started working there had made a pretty good team. We worked 8-hour shifts together almost every day and had a nice flow going on. The manager had been looking for an assistant manager for a while and had decided to give the job to one of the waitresses who had been there a while. This is when everything started going wrong. The waitress turned assistant manager decided that she was going to be telling everyone what to do and when to do it and how to do it. Now, the girl that I worked every day with and I had a good understanding of the day-to-day traffic coming into the bar. We knew when it was going to be quiet and when it wasn't. So we made sure to take our breaks during the quiet times. It never sat dead on the middle of our shift. We'd just take them, knowing that we couldn't take them later or we would be leaving one of us swamped. So she'd go for a half an hour, and then I would, and then she would the next day. The new assistant manager decided that wasn't right and that we shouldn't be doing that, and that we should be taking the breaks in the middle of the shift. We both tried explaining to her that both of us taking a break at the same time was dumb and that it was better to do it now when it was quiet. But she knew better. She would take over bar duties while we were away. I guess she was seeing that it was dead and didn't think about it. Anyway, she really wants the bar cleaned, something we did every day anyway, but she wanted it done now. So we did. We didn't prep for the rush. We didn't do anything but clean the bar. About 2 hours later, the mad rush starts. There's 3 of us behind the bar taking table orders for the waitresses and serving punters to those who sit at the table. It hits bang on the middle of our shift, and me and the girl put down our tools and left the bar. The new assistant manager was like, "What are you doing? You can't leave now." Me and the other girl told her, "This is what you wanted. We tried to tell you, but you didn't want to listen. So it's break time just like you said." We smiled, linked arms, and went off to enjoy some food together. We came back about half an hour later. The place was in shambles. Turns out the new manager had very limited experience working a bar. She didn't know how the coffee machine worked. She didn't know how to pull Guinness, so the place was dead again. Most people just going elsewhere. She was super angry, calling us all the names under the sun and that she was going to get us fired. Just an extreme rant, complete with finger pointing, and that just made us leave again. We both quit on the spot and left her to explain to the manager what had happened. We came back in later on in the week for our final pay and to return the t-shirt uniforms. Had to sit down with the manager and gave our side of it. Manager wasn't impressed with any of us, which is fair enough, but I stand by what we did. We did everything to try and explain to the new assistant manager on that day, but she just wasn't hearing it. She wanted things to be done her way and to lord her new power on everyone. I don't think anyone responds well to, "I'm the boss, you do as I say." The girl and I became friends outside of work for a while, but we got other jobs and just kind of drifted apart as you do. Woman tries to argue that a flag was on clearance, but it wasn't. Football season had started a while back at my store, so we were putting out some flags for our college football team. So no item that has the logo on it would be on clearance. This is going to be important later. We are also a register in an obscure part of the store, less than 10 feet from an exit. We have a security door and have to press a button to let people out, but we still need to be on guard. Enter a woman at our register, customer, and our coworker and myself. Me. "Can I check you out for today?" Customer. "Yes, sir. Is everything super busy?" "Yes, ma'am. The store is moving quickly to get ready for tailgate season." I get to this 10-foot flag, and it has a clearance sticker on it. Thinking that that can't be right, I look at the sticker and scan it. It rings up as a beach towel. I quickly void the item and peel the sticker off, which was loose, and put it on my desk, and then ring up the correct barcode. "That is supposed to be $15. Me. "Ma'am, that price would be for the label that's right there." I show her the clearance label, and the item it's listed for is a beach towel. You can see the item name on that label. This is a flag that we just put on the shelf a few days ago. It couldn't be on clearance. "But it's on sale." The flag is not, ma'am. The beach towel that this label belongs to is. There's nothing I can do for you but ring it up at the right price, which is $64 for this flag. "It's on sale. Sell it to me for $15. Coworker walking up. "What seems to be the problem?" Me, discreetly. "This lady is trying to purchase this item with a label for a different item from the clearance section." Coworker. "Ma'am, this label is for an entirely separate item. We can't sell it to you at this price." So she rants and raves. We give her the flag back. She also snatched the label, which I should have thrown away, and goes towards the garden center register. About half the time, customers that do the garden/automotive register dance are usually up to no good to begin with. I call loss prevention and have them follow her. She does the same thing at the garden center register. She reapplied the label and said that it was on sale. They denied it, so she left the flag there and left the store with haste. I was correct in my standing as the flag was not on clearance and she tried it on the electronics register before mine. People think we are so stupid. Karen demands I buy her a $200,000 car. I'm 30 and my girlfriend is 25. She wrecked and totaled her car last week. No injuries, thankfully. She is a notoriously bad driver. She's been driving since she was 16, and this is the third time that she's totaled. Found at fault for all three, and been involved with multiple other minor accidents. A couple of days ago, we left to take her to the dealership so that she can get another car, and directs me to drive her to the Porsche dealership as she's scheduled to test drive a brand new 2021 Porsche convertible. What? That's an obvious joke, right? She tells me she's dead serious. She just totaled an older model Kia Rio. Why the sudden upgrade to a $200,000 car? I don't even drive a car that nice. An argument ensued from there. I ask how she's planning on paying for that. She's a waitress at a very high-end restaurant with big clientele, so she's paid well, but business has been slow the last few months due to everything going on. She says, obviously with my job, we'd be able to afford it no problem. While it's true that it wouldn't break the bank, I told her that I might as well light the money on fire with the way she drives. I suggested she get a used, non-luxury brand, and that if she can go a few years without an accident, maybe then get a luxury car. A little more back and forth, and neither of us feel like getting a car anymore, so we go back home. It's now been 3 days since the argument, and she's been sleeping in the spare bedroom and barely talking to me. The friends we have in our group chat are split, and some believe I'm the jerk, and some believe she is. So Reddit, what's your verdict? Entitled mom drops her spawn off at a daycare he's not even registered at. When working at the after-school program, it was a part-time gig since I was only there from about 1 in the afternoon until the last closing time, which was 6. It was nice since I could sleep in and do my schoolwork. It was a great setup, and 90% of the kids and parents were great. Hardly any of them were entitled, and not gonna lie, I miss my kids a lot. But very rarely, I would get called into work to sub for a teacher in the daycare. Now a quick note here is that the daycare was run by the church. The after-school program was run by the school. They were separate entities, but sometimes the daycare would call teachers from the after-school to sub for the daycare sometimes. It was never a problem since the daycare workers were really nice, showed us how to handle toddlers and babies. Anyway, I said yeah, I would watch this class of 4-year-olds while their teacher was at a doctor's appointment. No biggie, it shouldn't be more than an hour. Like at most daycares and my after-school program, you have to register your kid if you want them to attend daycare or the after-school program, and that way their name can be added to the roll. Also, every time you come to pick up or drop off your kid, you have to sign them in and out. The same applies to visitors. So I go in, sign in the sub list, go to the classroom, and do a quick roll call. I have a total of 8 kids. Cool beans. 2 hours go by. Their teacher is still a no-show, and I'm doing my best teaching their Bible lesson. 9:30, the kids are in their stations playing, taking a break from their reading lesson. The door opens, and the devil and her spawn come in. Like I said earlier, I have no clue who these kids are, but I do have my role. The devil, Karen, walks in, ushers in spawn. Karen comes in after her son, before I even had a chance to speak to him and ask his name. Karen turns to me and says, "Are you the teacher?" Me. No, I'm Miss Mary. I'm just subbing for Miss Lily, the regular teacher. Fine. When is she going to be back? Me. Hopefully in a little while. I don't normally work here. I work in the after-school program. I was wondering, is your son new? I don't see his name on the roll. Karen. Oh yes, we registered yesterday. Me, a little wary. Oh, okay. I'm sure he'll get added to the roll in the coming week. Karen. Okay, we'll be back around 8 to pick him up. I stop as she leaves for the door. Me. Ma'am, you can't leave your son here after 6. It's a state law. 80% sure this is true. Karen. Okay, fine. And Karen drew out fine like I just asked her to take out the garbage. As she walks out the door, Spawn is playing with the kids and getting along just fine. But part of me was just wary, like something didn't settle right with me. I grabbed the walkie-talkie and radioed the supervisor, asking if Miss Lily's class was expecting a new kid. She said no. Thankfully, I had messaged her just as Karen was walking out the door. The supervisor said to bring Spawn to the office. He was sad, but I explained we had to see Mama. I took him to the office after asking a teacher to step in while I was gone. When we got about halfway down the hall, I hear, "What do you mean my son can't be here?" Supervisor, your son is not registered with our daycare. We cannot accept him. But this is a daycare. I walk in at this point with Spawn in hand, and she points to me. Well, she let my son in the room. Supervisor: I know, but she is a sub, and she has to go by the roll. Your son was not on the roll, nor is he enrolled here. I'm sorry, Miss Karen, but you and your son have to leave. Spawn is upset at this point because he was getting along with some of the kids, but Karen being Karen had just started back up. This is a daycare. You have a no discrimination policy. You have to accept my son. Supervisor: Ma'am, you are right. We have a no discrimination policy, but you have to schedule a tour and an interview if you want to enroll your kid here. This does not mean it's a walk-in daycare. Please just leave. I'm just standing there with Spawn holding my hand. She snatches Spawn from my hand and swears, This will not be the last time you hear from me. The supervisor tells me to go back to the classroom and not to worry, that I made a good call about the mom. The rest of the day goes by smoothly. I go to my real job without a worry. The next day, the supervisor emailed me with an update about Karen, pretty much saying, Hey Mary, just wanted to let you know that you did a good job yesterday handling that lady. And yes, she did call the director of the daycare trying to get us in trouble for discriminating against her because guess what? She's Italian. I mean, of all things, but I digress. The director said don't worry about anything and that you are more than welcome to sub here more often. The kids love you. Have a good rest of your day. I don't officially know what happened to Karen, but I do know from the email the director told her to shove off. Karen destroyed my fish tank, so I fired her. I've had my cleaning service for roughly 3 years as my husband and I routinely work 12 plus hours a day and are often sent away as well. Since the beginning, I've had a strict rule of do not clean the living room ever. This is due to me keeping a very elaborate aquarium, 1,300-gallon reef, and cleaning products used near it can kill my fish. Because of this, I'm the only one who cleans the living room. A few days ago, I noticed a few of my fish seemed to be breathing heavily and had lost a lot of coral that was closed up. This is a very well-established tank, and it's been running for the last 7 years, so I immediately knew that something was wrong. Most of my fish are just as old as the tank, and I've had very little sickness happen at all. Fortunately, my setup allows me to do massive water changes, and I was up until 8 a.m. changing probably 80% of the water. Despite my best efforts, I lost a lot of fish. Seahorses had their own section of the tank, rays, various tangs, but the losses that hit me the hardest were my Moorish idols and a 6-foot tessellata moray. My entire tank was set up for the idols specifically. I spent over a year preparing it before I even got them. My moray, Bill, I'd had since he was under a foot long. I hand-fed him all of his meals. While I was trying to figure out what could have possibly caused my tank to crash, I noticed that the living room was clean, spotless even, and I knew what had happened. Chemicals got in the water and killed almost everything. I immediately called my cleaning lady and I lost it, telling her that she had one thing to remember, one, and it shouldn't have been possible to forget, seeing as the reason took up almost an entire wall of my house. She told me she had hired a new girl and must have forgotten to explain to her that she wasn't supposed to clean the living room and continued to ask if she had done a good job. I replied that she had done such a good job cleaning, she cleaned out my tank's inhabitants and told her that she wouldn't be returning to my home and she wouldn't be paid for the week. She didn't take that very well and started threatening to bring me to small claims court because the job was still done and done well, apparently. I basically told her to kick dirt, and she's lucky I'm only firing her and not suing her due to the thousands of dollars I'd lost due to her mistake. Everyone keeps telling me they're only fish, just buy more, or she was just doing her job. I'm sure the poor girl feels horrible enough. Maybe I'm just letting my anger and upset cloud my judgment, and I'm being unreasonably harsh. But I loved those fish. They weren't just fish to me, and I loved them all very much. So please, am I the jerk for firing my cleaning lady for cleaning? Edit. Thank you guys for being so kind. A lot of people are suggesting I sue, or at least lawyer up. I do have a lawyer on retainer just because of the line I work in, but I have no plans on suing unless she tries to make a claim against me for a measly $150. I live in an incredibly small area, so word of mouth will be damaging enough. Update. Thank you guys for the overwhelming amount of support. On the other hand, apparently, I'm supposed to be giving an elaborate explanation of my care routine / setup and everything else. And I'm supposed to be posting on fish keeping subreddits every day, all day. Nope, For me, Reddit is just some website that I usually just browse the popular page of for a giggle before bed. If more information is needed, I hire a cleaning service, so I have time to take care for my tank. This isn't just some tank that I bought, it was actually built into the house. It's plumbed into the house, and I've spent more money than I am willing to disclose on systems in place that allow me to have this set up and still have my career. This was also not just a crash, though my tank certainly has crashed because of it. Some of my fish are now entirely blind and need to be taught to find food with smell alone. They will never be able to return to the main tank as they're now disabled and require more attention and more one-on-one care. Chemicals were involved, and my cleaning lady has contacted me to admit fault. I don't really know what else to say here, other than what's done is done, and nothing will change this. I really do appreciate the support the vast majority of people have shown. I do not support yelling at anyone who does service work, and I do still feel guilty about that. But I do feel better knowing that a lot of people believe my response was justified. This will be my last edit and update, as I have a lot of work to do from here. But I just want to let you know that I appreciate all of your kind words, general sense of outrage from my fishy friends, and the vast amount of attention this got. Have a good day, everyone. Rest in peace, Bill. Cheating student thought he had me fooled. Fell right into my trap. So, I'm a cancer researcher and a guest professor at a university school of medicine, teaching my specialty, imaging. Besides the usual acquisitions of medical images using MRI, CT, etc., imaging has a lot to do with image processing. Some days I'm just a glorified programmer/IT guy, and as anyone who has ever programmed anything will tell you, coding is a very personal activity. With enough experience, you can tell who wrote what just by looking at the lines. I'm also in my late 20s, and I'm not native to this country, and it's my first year as guest professor. So, some students look at me as this inexperienced, gullible foreign guy. As part of my module's grading, the students have to submit 2 reports that weigh 10% each of their final grade. These reports are about image processing, and they have to code a fair bit. As usual, there are students that make an effort. Some do minimal work and then cheat and copy. As I was grading the reports, I noticed a small group of students who found reports from previous years online and literally copy and pasted those reports, changing only their name. It was a facepalm moment because those reports were not even good and had a lot of errors. You see, in order to establish a baseline for my grading, I browsed previous year's reports, so I knew what to expect from the students of this module. Naturally, I graded them all with 0 and kept working my way through grading the reports I had left. Meanwhile, the students casually asked me in the halls how were the reports. Of course, I can't comment on that until I release the grades. One time, this dude who had copied from another report, 98% match on plagiarism checker, asks me when will I release the grades and comes up with this story that he worked really hard on his report, that his exam hasn't gone so well, and he's hoping that the grade on his report is enough to get a pass. I mean, submitting another person's work as your own is very wrong, but it was an online submission and impersonal. Right now, he was just lying through his teeth and to my face. I could feel my blood boiling, but I didn't lose my composure and decided to come up with a plan. I knew that my exam was the last exam of the semester, and that after that, the students usually go home or family vacations while they wait for their grades to be posted online. So I graded the exams and input their grades into my Excel with their report grades. 4 students had 0 due to cheating on their reports, and if I graded their reports with 50% of the max grade, they would barely fail the module, but they would fail nonetheless. So it was on. In order to be fair, I bumped up everyone else's grades. A bunch of people with miserable reports ended up barely passing because of my grades bump. But even though their reports were bad, it was their own work and not copied from anywhere. You see, students are entitled to make an appointment to review their grades after publishing and before the grades are locked for the year. Basically, they sit with me, we go through their exam and reports, and their goal is to convince me to give them extra points in hopes that they can pass the module. I knew the cheaters would come. After all, they think they fooled me once already, and they still have half the report's points to bargain for. So I just waited for their emails. Lo and behold, they write me the same day the grades go online, saying how hard they have worked on their reports, and that they don't understand how they only got a 50. And that they wanted an appointment. I was ecstatic. Sure, let's review your grades. Do you remember that my exam was the last one? Well, they were already on vacations, some very far away, and begged me for an online appointment. No can do. University policy. Moreover, you have 3 days to show for your appointment, otherwise the grades are locked. Also university policy. So here they come, cutting their vacation short and catching planes. Some spend hours in buses and trains to make it on time. I know what many of you are thinking. They come, I show them the plagiarism checker results and reveal that I know that it's not their work and send them on their way. Well, I considered it, but I had something better in mind. Those appointments usually only take 10 minutes. I show them their work with my notes on what's wrong and what's right, and they try to find some inconsistencies in my grading and bargain for more points. I ain't giving you the opportunity. So one by one, they sit with me individually, and I go through their exam and reports. Remember that they copied the reports and copied bad ones with a lot of errors. I ask questions, lots of them. Why did you do this? What is your reasoning for this? They don't know. It's not their work. They mumble random stuff because they don't know what to answer. Point by point, mistake by mistake, I explain what is wrong, how it should be done, lecturing the same material that they had already been lectured on during class. I make it long, I make it boring, I make it painful. I spent hours with each of them throughout those 3 days. They always came up with the same, "I worked so hard on this," and a little smirk on their face before they thought that it should be really easy to fool me, the gullible foreign again. And as hours go by, I'm walking through the errors one by one. I could see their expressions change. Little by little, their hopes of passing being slowly crushed. And when they realized that I knew they cheated and I wasn't going to give them any extra points. At this point, they tried to cut short their appointment and leave, but I wouldn't let them. "We need to finish the review of your grades. It's university policy." And I just kept going, extending their misery for one more hour or two. It was glorious. At the end, every single one of them left with a crushed soul look in their eyes and a fail in my class. They knew that I caught them, that I baited them, and they fell for it. They ruined their vacation and their family vacations, spent money to travel back and forth, wasted precious summer time, and had nothing to show for it. And next year, they will have to repeat the module with me. I hope you enjoy your summer. See you next year. Entitled Mom tries to take my computer. Backstory. I absolutely love technology and get very protective of computers, even if it isn't mine. Mostly because I understand how expensive they are to manufacture and how annoying it is for stores and people. I'm 15 and have a baby face and size that makes me look like I'm 12. Cast. We've got me. We've got Entitled Mom. We've got the scared kid. We've got the kind employee and the annoying security. Okay, so my local Walmart had to hire a few security officers because they keep getting trollers knocking stuff over and calling the cops wastes their time. I went to my local Walmart to get a new laptop because my old one broke last week. So I got the last one on the shelf and was heading to the checkout when Entitled Mom walks up and just takes it out of my arms. So I look at her and say, "Miss, that was clearly in my hands, and I'd like it if you could give it back." And she looks at me with this, "I'm clearly a jerk" face and says, "You're obviously too young to buy this. Where are your parents?" I was mad because, well, I hate my small height. So I turn around and head for the nearest employee. The lady grabs my shoulder and says, "Don't walk away from me." The employee, literally walking our way, looks up and sees and hears this and runs over. Employee, "Is everything all right here?" Me, "No. I was taking this laptop to the cash register so that I could check out, and this weirdo just came up and took it out of my hands." "No, I did not. I'm so sorry for this, sir. This is my son. He makes stuff up all the time." Me, "I'm not your son, you crazy jerk. Now let go of me." So I struggle out of her grip and take my laptop and start walking towards the registers when this lady literally screams. It was the worst sound I've ever heard. The employee is just standing there now, pale as a ghost, saying, "Ma'am, please quiet down. I will get your laptop back." The employee runs up to me and takes the laptop and grabs me and starts walking back when annoying security comes running up and asks what happened. The employee and security have a quick conversation about what's happening, me now in security's grip. Then they give Entitled Mom the laptop and tell me that I need to wait at the front for her and she will finish shopping. Me, "This crazy jerk isn't my mom, and you can ask the employee at the tech desk. He got the laptop out of the glass cabinet thing for me." So, as security, The employee and Karen walk back with me to the tech desk and ask the guy sitting there who confirms that he got me the laptop. I walked out of the store with a laptop, 15% off, a $50 Walmart gift card, and the entitled mom screaming at the security about how she had rights. He wasn't allowed to do this and that I was a little jerk who was extremely disrespectful. Seriously, could have handled it better, but entitled moms are common in my area and very annoying. Props to the employee for being so nice and handling it well. Security was a jerk when I got the laptop back and just disrespectful the entire time. Bank wants to play stupid games? Then let's play stupid games. So I live in South Korea, but I work for a US company in South Korea. And because I work for an American company, and I'm one of the few employees of my company that is American in South Korea, my company doesn't issue me this letter that basically says I'm employed in South Korea. So this means I have restrictions on my Korean bank account. I can only withdraw 250,000 won, about $216 a day, from an ATM, and if I go in person to a teller, I can only withdraw 1 million won, about $870 a day. This normally doesn't present a problem for me. I also can't have a debit or credit card. I get a bank book, which is kind of like an electronic checkbook that's a physical thing you carry. For your information, I use my American bank for most of my day-to-day spending. But it did once. I signed a lease for a new apartment and my deposit was 10 million won, about 8,700 US dollars. Yes, this is normal for Korea. So I transferred the money from my American bank to my Korean bank, and I went to the bank in person to transfer the money to my landlord. I get there and the teller tells me I can only transfer 1 million per day. My first idea was to ask my landlord if she'd be cool with me transferring her 1 million won a day for 10 days. She doesn't like that idea. So I'm sitting there arguing and the bank manager comes out. He's a nice enough man and speaks good English. Basically, he says because of my type of my account, there is no way that I can transfer more than 1 million a day. So I need this money and I'm thinking, and the light bulb goes off in my head. Me. If I close my account, do I get my money? Manager. Yes, we would give you the cash. Me. And if I close my account, can I open a new one? Manager. Of course. Me. Is there a waiting period after closing my account to open a new one? No. Fantastic. Please close my account. Manager. Sure, I will need your bank book and we will destroy it. I hand them my bank book and they destroy it. I sign some papers to close the account. Bank manager closes the account and gives me all the money in the account in an envelope. Manager. Anything else I can help you with today? I smile and pull out my passport. Yes, I'd like to open a new bank account. Bank manager looks at me and it dawns on him what I just did. He laughs, shakes his head, and goes, sure, not a problem. I opened a new account, deposited 10,000 won, and left with my deposit in my pocket. I believe this qualifies for malicious compliance because I followed the bank's rules and it resulted in them having to do more work. So, you think you can feed a family on $150 per month? Several years ago, my ex-husband, our son, and I, pregnant, lived in a fairly well-off town. We weren't rich or even middle class at the time, more like upper low class living in a low class apartment. He thought he was good with money, but he really isn't. He has ideas because his dad is an accountant, but he has no actual practical knowledge. I knew we were on a budget and for the most part agreed to keeping down the cost of most of the expenses. The only exception in my eyes was the food budget. I would try to spend $600 a month on food for the 3.5 of us, and this was still what I considered on the low end. For example, friends of ours, just a couple with no dependents, would spend about $800 to $900 on groceries, while my ex-in-laws would spend $1,200 to $1,500 on groceries for 3 to 4 people. We had a kid and a baby on the way. Cutting food out wasn't an option. Kid is hungry. Kid needs to eat. As a pregnant woman, I ate for the both of us, and I didn't splurge on treats for my cravings. I knew we had bills to pay, and that my financially crazy ex would be upset if I ate away at our food budget due to a craving. My ex-husband would frequently complain over several years how we spend too much money on groceries. He mentioned a couple times per month that $600 per month was too much. We needed to reduce our food budget to $150 a month. I tried to show him grocery receipts. I tried showing him flyers and online ads. He still maintained that we could survive off of $150 in groceries each month. He was adamant. He was sure. He was positive that I was just making things difficult. I wasn't the only one to tell him that he was wrong. As I stated, I was pregnant, which means hormonal. I had had enough, so here's where the malicious compliance comes in. Me. Okay, I've had enough of this. Tomorrow is the start of a new month. I haven't gone grocery shopping in a week. Give me $150 in cash and I will feed us for the month. X. Really? Okay, I'll bring home the cash tomorrow. I spent the rest of the evening searching for every single coupon I could find. Fun fact, Americans have this system where if you spend a coupon at certain grocery stores, you could buy an item for 10 cents to 50 cents. However, we don't live in the US. Our coupons pale in comparison. I searched for all the deals. I wrote down a list of items we needed, what store had them for what price, and noted if I had a coupon or not. For your information, I generally did something similar to this anyway, but I just expanded my search to a couple extra stores. The following day, when I was given $150 by my ex, I waddled my pregnant self around 4 different grocery stores, grabbing all of the food we normally eat. When I got home, I had spent approximately $145 of our oh-so-generous food budget on the first day of the month. I was proud of myself. Sarcasm. I had budgeted so well. I showed my ex-husband all of the food I bought and all of the receipts. I placed the change in a jar on top of the fridge with the receipts inside. He said I did well and was happy I bought so much for so little. Later on that week, we ran out of milk. Kid has no milk to drink for his cereal. Out to the store to buy some. A week and a half later, it's getting close to dinner time. X. What's for dinner? Me. Nothing. What do you mean nothing? We have plenty of food. Oh, do we? I didn't realize. What did you find in the cupboards? X opens the cupboard doors. Fridge, freezer, pantry door. Nothing. There's literally nothing. Me. Okay, so we have no food in the house. How much money do we have for our food budget? X empties the jar. 34 cents. That can't be right. Me. Did you add up the receipts and see if we made a mistake somewhere? X. Okay, I get it. I'll go buy some groceries. And that, my friends, is how you convince your financially crazy ex-spouse that their budgeting ideas are out of touch with reality. Sadly, I did not convince him to increase our food budget back to $600 a month, but he did agree to $500 per month, which I suppose he keeps to this day, despite the fact it's usually just himself he has to feed. Chef, how long for that order? I've posted a few times about my work in a hotel. This is the last story of malicious compliance that I can think of worth telling. I was quite new to the hotel and very new to room service when this happened, so the chefs hadn't gotten to know me yet. I was waiting on an order, the only room service order, and the kitchen was not quiet. It wasn't busy, but there were a few orders queued up for the restaurant. I had been waiting for the order for maybe 7 to 8 minutes and had picked a couple of quick, easy jobs to do while I waited. Not wanting to start anything else in case I didn't have time, I approached the sous chef, Satish, at the window. How long for that order, chef? Buzz off. Something about the way he said it didn't cause me to instantly get upset, but I was a bit confused and thought maybe he thought I was rushing him. So I asked again differently. I'm just wondering how long I have before the order is ready. I said buzz off. Okay, now I'm ticked off. You want me to buzz off? No bother, mate. I walked over to the room service station, grabbed the trolley, and went up to the 7th floor in search of the dirty room service trays. The building, shaped like a U, and the service elevator is smack dab in the middle of the U. So when checking the floors, you need to pick one direction and walk until the end, as there are little alcoves designed to hide the trays so it looks less dirty to an extent. So you need to walk one side, double back around to the elevator, and repeat for the other side. There are about 85 to 97 rooms per floor, so it's at least half a kilometer walked per floor. I walked all 6 floors that had rooms on them. Ordinarily, I would grab 4 to 5 trays and pop back down to clear them off, but forget that noise. I pile about 10 trays precariously until it looks like Wile E. Coyote's latest attempt to catch Roadrunner and take my Acme trolley back down. I arrive back downstairs a good 30 to 40 minutes later and can hear the echoes of the chef screaming, "Room service!" half the hotel away. I stroll into the kitchen and walk towards the porter station to unload dirty dishes, and Satish finally spots me. "Where the heck have you been? I've been calling you for 20 minutes. I went to clear the floors. I asked you how long and you wouldn't answer. I can't stand around all day for one order. I've got other stuff to do. If I ask and you tell me 10 minutes, I'll be back in 9. If you tell me 2 minutes, I won't even leave. I'll find something here. But if you tell me to buzz off, I'll do whatever I deem to be urgent." Satish didn't answer. I can see he's not happy, but he's thinking. The moments seem to drag on. Finally, he starts laughing. Didn't expect that. He turns around to the chef and says, "This is ruined. I need a new one straight away." Turns back to me and politely says, "2 minutes." Not to push my luck, I unload the trays at breakneck speed and grab the new tray for this order and move to the window after 90 seconds. The fallout? Satish is actually a great guy, and we got on like a house on fire after that. He would always tell me how long, and we were actually the most efficient pairing. I have no idea why he was like that at the moment it happened, but he moved past it pretty quickly and was usually in a great mood. He would sing and dance when it was crazy busy to keep himself hyped up on adrenaline, and we had plenty of laughs before I moved on about 8 months later. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay an artist for her work? Okay, so I know it sounds bad, but I genuinely don't think I'm at fault here. So I'm currently planning to get my apartment repainted completely since I've just moved in and all of the walls happen to be white. I was talking to a friend about this when he told me he had a friend who had just recently graduated art school and was really into wall painting. I told him I didn't want any wall painting done because I had already planned out most of the coloring scheme. He told me that his friend was looking for places to practice wall painting since she's new to it and hasn't really found places she could do that without it being vandalism. So he called her up and we had a chat. I said, I don't mind letting her paint the walls in my bedroom because I'm busy for the next few days and it isn't a common living space. I checked with my painters and they told me that they could easily paint over that. They're not free for a couple of weeks, so I haven't moved in yet, but I told him to ask his friend to go nuts in my room without scraping or causing any damage. I told her that her work would be painted over. She said she's simply doing it for the practice and wouldn't mind as long as she could take some pictures for her portfolio and that I would be doing her a huge favor letting her practice. So fast forward a couple of weeks and I go to my room and it's absolutely amazing with a bunch of designs and a lot of edgy art, so I decide that I wouldn't get it painted over. Problem is, I have a contract with my painter and still have to pay him for my room even if he doesn't do the job. I called her and told her that the room was great and I'd be recommending her to anyone who asked who painted my room. She then, out of the blue, asked me how much I'd be paying her for the work. I told her about my painter situation and that I would have paid her the amount I was paying him if I didn't have a contract. She got mad and told me that I was taking advantage of a young artist. She's literally 3 years younger than me. She said she'd sue me for payment and I reminded her of our agreement. She said that that was done on the basis that I wouldn't be keeping it. I told her that I was doing her a favor by giving her a place to practice and that I never had any monetary obligation. She blew up at me and called our mutual friend. I explained my situation and how I simply don't have the funds, but he thinks I'm the jerk too. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit, I never wanted my room to be painted by an artist and don't have the money to get it done professionally. I thought I'd keep it because it looks great and I could recommend other people who saw it to her. Edit, I did not charge her anything for letting her use my walls for practice. Edit, I didn't commission her to do it. I didn't even give her any guidelines except not to scrape up the walls. This was supposed to be her practicing and making a portfolio. I wasn't trying to con her. I thought it wouldn't hurt me to let her practice since I would be getting repainting done anyways. I did not originally plan on keeping the art. I was thinking of paying her a token amount, whatever I can, but now I'm torn about doing that as well since that would actually give her grounds to sue. She does not have the right to claim ownership or intellectual property rights of the art right now. I checked, but I don't want to get myself into more hot water trying to do a good thing. The painters were contracted and are being paid for me reserving their time, at least from what I understand. It's too late to cancel any charges. Am I the jerk for wearing white at my blind cousin's wedding? I'd like to start by saying that me and my female cousin, blind from birth, aren't very close, but we get along well as relatives. She's 26 and her wedding was last week. She sent me an invitation, though we don't talk much, but since I wanted a break from work, I decided to go. My favorite color is white. I have brown skin. Love wearing white because it brings out my skin glow and makes me feel comfortable and confident. I purchased a maxi white dress. Nothing fancy, but goes well with my skin tone and wore it at the wedding. There wasn't a big party with many guests, but sort of a family dinner and small celebration. I really thought no one would even notice I was wearing white. My cousin and her husband didn't know because obviously no one told them, but my aunt kept giving me uncomfortable looks the entire evening, and so did my other cousin. Once I decided to leave, my aunt pulled me aside and berated me for wearing this color at her daughter's wedding. She just said because her daughter is blind doesn't mean she's stupid and doesn't know what's going on around her. Basically saying I brought negative energy and disturbed the celebration by having guests notice, and by extension, my cousin as well. She gave a lengthy lecture and asked if I hate to see her daughter happy and whether I pulled this stunt because my blind cousin got married before me. I was like, whoa, calm down. None of this is true. I just wore my favorite color and didn't do it because my cousin is blind and wouldn't notice. And married before me? I never thought of that. I argued with my aunt for trying to dictate what I wear, but she defended herself, saying I was a guest and should have respected the bride. I left feeling very upset and exhausted from that encounter. My boyfriend said he believed I used the fact that my cousin is blind to wear white, but this didn't fly with her family. He pulled the "I told you so" line and said that I just made the family hate me with that stunt, even though he knows that I always wear white. But he warned me that if my cousin finds out, there's going to be issues. He suggested I get ready to apologize, but I really see no reason to apologize since I chose to wear a comfortable color that I feel confident in. Edit. What the heck? I'm seeing some angry folks here getting too upset over this matter. I honestly never cared about this stuff, but obviously a lot of people do. I just think it's ultimately my choice to wear what I want whenever I go somewhere, especially since I wasn't taking any part of the wedding. But seeing how many people care about minor stuff like this, I guess I didn't think this through. Am I the jerk for quitting a job on the spot when they gave me a bad evaluation after only working 15 hours? When I was 23, I started working at a clothing store in the mall for some extra money. I was there for about a week, though I only worked some short training shifts. I worked a total of 15 hours. The managers pulled me aside and said they gave me an evaluation. It would have been fine. I am open to criticism and improving. However, they gave me a really low score, 5 out of 45, saying I was not living up to expectations and it was going to go in my file. They promised it would be amended when I improved. I pointed out that this was unfair, as I had not been trained on 3/4 of the things on that list, so why was I getting a low permanent score before my training period was up? I asked for the paper and they said I could not have it, but they would give me a copy. I told them never mind, this was not a job I saw myself thriving at, and they should find someone else to finish my shift. It was my first long shift. I was supposed to work 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., but said I didn't care if they had to stay late and left. They tried to get me not to leave by saying that they would give me a copy of the paper, but I said I wasn't going to work here any longer and I went home. I found a new job babysitting until I finished my degree. I've never been into that store again. Am I the jerk? Karen destroyed my fiance's hearing aid. I'm 24, female, and my fiance, male 26, suffers from hearing impairment. It's got severe in the past few months and he wears hearing aid full time. My sister, who's 19, and my cousin, who is 22, were visiting 2 nights ago after going shopping. They were discussing my fiance's hearing aid and arguing about whether the device would still function after being exposed to certain degrees of heat or cold. They asked my fiance to do a little experiment, but he refused to let them touch it. While I was in the kitchen, my sister sneaked into the bedroom where my fiance was sleeping and took his hearing aid. Then she used the hairdryer to produce heat to test the device. I didn't know the device was ruined until later that night when my fiance told me his hearing aid wasn't working properly. His hearing ability gradually declined and he started having headaches. I thought something was wrong with the device itself until my cousin contacted me on Facebook saying my sister took the device and used the hairdryer on it and lost the bet that they both had made. I was furious. I went over to my parents' house and confronted my sister. She was shocked and started crying after I told her that she had just ruined over $5,000 worth of medical device because of a stupid bet and that she needed to pay for it immediately. My wedding is in less than 2 weeks and my fiance won't even be able to hear his surroundings without his hearing aid, so it won't happen until he gets a new hearing aid and this stuff is expensive. She freaked out after I demanded she pay $5,000 for a new hearing aid because she didn't know that it cost this much and complained that the money she has saved is to pay for her tuition. Otherwise, she won't be able to make any progress in college. My parents begged me to postpone the wedding until they found a solution that all parties can agree on. But postponing the wedding is going to cost us a lot more than the price of the hearing aid my sister is refusing to pay for. I had an argument with them because I was not only worried about the wedding, but my fiance's health too. It's been 2 days and he's been complaining about headaches and feeling isolated. The doctor warned against going long times without hearing aids, and so this is concerning. My parents said they would have paid me themselves if they had that kind of money, but I was unreasonable to take away my sister's education money that she worked for when I could postpone, and I'm worried about not getting a new hearing aid before the wedding. Essentially, making it about the wedding and accusing me of choosing a party that lasts a few hours over my sister's future in education. I left their house and still stood my ground despite them telling me I'm being selfish for not working with them on a solution for this issue. Further info. Just to clarify, the device was working up until late at night. Then my fiance told me he was having issues hearing and the device stopped working altogether hours later. I did not think my sister had anything to do with it until my cousin contacted me and my fiance while we were going to see his doctor to discuss the problem. Unfortunately, my sister has done similar things in the past, so it wasn't too surprising to find out she was behind it. My parents tend to let my sister get away with either intentionally or unintentionally ruining others' belongings without any accountability. Last summer, she ruined her friend's dad's car, but wasn't told anything because my parents paid for the damages. Now, because I'm family, then it was clearly wrong of me to expect either her or my parents to pay. I wanted to add this piece of info. While my sister was the one who did it, I'm pretty sure it was my cousin's idea. She's very rude to my fiance and always thinks it's fine to make negative comments about him. Well, what do you think? Should OP's sister have to pay for a new hearing aid with her college funds or not? Please let us know. I'd press charges, family or not. Karen thinks sailboats are public property. I'm a 43-year-old IT guy, divorced with 2 kids, a daughter who's 9 and a son who's 7. I'm a member of a yacht club and own a small 34 Bavaria cruiser from 2008. Next to my kids, she's my pride and joy. Every year I take 3 weeks vacation along with my kids and we go cruising for the better part of those 3 weeks. We have a small dinghy that basically serves as our pickup truck / food haul. Now because of lockdown, we couldn't go anywhere outside our home country. So we said, forget it, we'll be tourists in our own country, and went for a cruise to all the small cozy harbors we normally don't get to see. So cruise is a go. My son knows about the lines and knows how to dock and whatnot. My daughter is the dinghy skipper during this. She loves that thing. We always have our club pennant flying as well as the Jolly Roger. Jolly Roger means, kids aboard, come play. We leave our home port and spend a day and night at sea to get the sea legs growing and sharpen up on our boating drills. Retired Navy, I can't help it. On our 3rd day, we arrive at a small marina, roughly 200 berths. In my country, calling ahead on VHF is not a thing, so the only thing to do is either go in with the boat or send in the dinghy to spot for a berth. Now, occupied berths are marked with a red sign. Available means a green sign. My kids know this and are also learning to spot a fitting berth. Our boat is 3.6 meters wide and berths are in different width. So the trick is to spot a berth wider than 3.6 but not wider than 4 meters because that's the golden difference. Any berth wider than 4 meters costs a ton of money and is meant for bigger boats. Well, Captain Dinghy was volunteering, as always, to scout ahead while I and the XO were watching from just outside the inlet. She's equipped with, of course, a life jacket, radio, not VHF since that requires a certificate, and a good idea on how wide 3.6 meters really is. Our dinghy happens to be 3.5 meters long, so as long as she can fit the dinghy from end to end between the posts it fits, including engine. Now, most people that hang around the marinas are used to seeing kids in these and wouldn't raise an eyebrow over my daughter wearing a life jacket and looking for empty berths. However, not all people are like that, which we would soon find out. She found one and radioed that back, saying, "I've got one, Daddy. It's the Jeep here, and I'm waiting for you here. Over." I reply with, "Good job. En route now. Daddy out." The owners of the boats on either side are the caring, nicer older couples, and especially the portside neighbors are completely stunned by Captain Dinghy and her professionalism. They are small-talking when we arrive on the berth and help mooring, for which I pay with a cold beer and a soda for the kids. Happy days all around. On the opposite side of the pier, a couple of boats also are flying the Jolly Roger, so the kids are off after a quick lunch. The berth directly opposite of us is also available, but knowing from experience, that will soon change, and how right I was. Later in the afternoon, we saw the arrival of HMS Karen and her sailing circus. They arrived while the nice grandparents next door and I were discussing nice marinas to visit, and as a matter of course, we stood by to help receive lines and help with mooring. To simplify their docking, it was a crap show. They had a trimaran, 3 hulls. The outer 2 can retract when you dock and extend when you sail. They knew nothing about the boat, so clearly a rental boat. After 5 or 6 attempts of docking with one side retracted, other side retracted, no side retracted, full power plus screaming all around, the harbor master even came down to join us. Now we stand 8 guys plus 1 harbor master and just looking like, what the heck are you doing? Even my 7-year-old son comes up with some new friends, goes, are they for real? Grandma Port quickly provided some ice and soda for the kids. She was amazing. We managed to convince them, the wrecking crew, to throw us the forward lines and we could pull them in after they retracted both pontoons. This took the better part of 1.5 hours. When they finally docked, they acted like they invented boating. I know that docking in a foreign port can be quite difficult, but when you need 8 people to help you, one might keep a low profile. Not that couple though. They were totally clueless about how to get shore power, water, and how to register with the harbor master, who happened to be standing right in front of them when they docked. The harbor master is now trying to guide them on how to register, what to do regarding the shore power in water. And boy, did they listen. HMS Karen started full yelling about how they have paid a lot of money to rent that boat and how they expected harbor fees to be included in the rent, and to threaten to report the harbor master to the rental company they used and get him fired for trying to extort money from them. After her endless monologue, there were about 8 to 10 guys laughing. The harbor master just looked at them and went, okay, these are the rules. Each marina requires a fee for docking. That fee covers power, water, and the space you occupy. It includes access to bathrooms, cooking facilities, and cleaning. Your rental company does not own any marina. Is that clear? The circus husband understood, but failed to convey the last part to HMS Karen, something we found out later the next morning. Next morning, we prepared to go underway. Kids are saying goodbye to their new friends. My son is pampered with cookies from Grandma Port and Starboard, broken hearts from the young girls in the marina. He's got blonde hair with curls and green eyes, a heartbreaker. And Captain Dingy is getting ready to go underway. She's dressed in the uniform for the part. Here's where the title comes into play. We are finishing our stay, meaning pulling our shore power cable, testing lights and systems, testing our bow thruster and prop, VHS and dinghy. While I'm standing at the stern ready to single up the lines so my curly-haired XO will have an easy job, HMS Karen comes running up to me. Karen, what are you doing? Me, good morning. We'll get underway now. We're going to island recommended by Grandma Port. Enjoy your stay here. What? You can't leave? Me, pretty sure I can. Why wouldn't I? Because we want that boat. Me, what? You want my boat? Lady, my boat is not for sale, so excuse me, we have to go. No, all boats are property of the rental company, and we called them yesterday and chartered that boat. Now, hand it over or else. Me, lady, you're nuts. To XO, clear forward lines. To CD, meet up outside the marina, docking starboard side. Now we are not attached to the marina anymore, and my son is rolling up the bowlines when HMS tries to grab the push pit to keep us in the marina. Well, she lost that battle. Me, all stop, man overboard. She came up yelling and screaming. Starboard Granddad guided her on board their boat and asked her what the heck she was doing, while Port Granddad called the harbor master. Me, is she okay? Both Granddads. Yes, we got her. Enjoy your trip, and we'll see you in the next port. We leave and head for the port. And oh boy, did I hope she was a one-time Karen. Karen loses her mind because I'm deaf. So some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain. As someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store. It's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do all of the tasks. So this particular night, I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want, overstock, or were damaged. There was a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones, ringtones, or some things like that. Though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I am deaf, I know sign language, have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I am in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I'm very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Some kind people even sign with me. That always makes me smile. I'm pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing impaired person. So when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they're very apologetic. Not this time. This is where the story gets good. Cast. We've got me, the deaf teenager. We've got Crazy Karen. We've got Nice Customer, Store Manager 1. We've got Regional District Manager 2. So I'm mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. So this was earlier than I normally begin. There were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in the paper towel section when I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around, startled to see this lady. She's taller than me, and I'm no slouch. I'm 6 feet tall, or 72 inches. She's very thin, probably mid-50s, fizzy blonde hair only held back by a hat atop her head. This was back in September of 2020, and of course, she wasn't wearing a mask. She begins to what I assume was yell, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I can't hear. According to the Nice Customer, who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like, "I'm talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes." She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it hard and causing it to unsnap from around my neck. She throws it to the ground. At this point, I'm very nervous and I start to panic. I try to actually say, "I can't hear," but I'm not sure how it came out, as I've never actually heard my own voice. My significant other says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the Nice Customer enters the picture. I see him round the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to the Crazy Karen, asking her what the problem was. This is all that he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. Nice Customer looks over to me, and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down, "I'm deaf, and I don't know why she's yelling at me." Nice Customer turns to Crazy Karen, and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at him like that?" And responses like, "He's not deaf. He's just ignoring me because he's a lazy little jerk." This goes on for a few minutes, and I finally begin to cry, as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of 2 managers, Manager 1 and Manager 2. Manager 1 walks up to me, while Manager 2 walks to Nice Customer and Crazy Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. Manager 1 no sign and asks me if I'm alright. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. Manager 1 tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, Manager 1 and Manager 2 walked in with a police officer. The Crazy Karen had been arrested. Manager 1 explains to me in sign language that Crazy Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault, and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and give my statement. The Nice Customer stuck around, and I wrote him a thank you note. Manager 1 also gave him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm thankful for awesome people like Nice Customer, Manager 1, and Manager 2. Also, Crazy Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount, and I honestly hope it really messes with her life. I never meant to downplay any bad behavior or anything like that. I was simply giving my honest opinion, and I honestly hope it really takes a toll on her. Would I be the jerk if I report a coworker for faking a pregnancy? I, 20s female, found myself at a crossroad recently and thought posting here could help, even though I'm almost sure this will be voted "You're the jerk." I don't want to be too specific, but I've been working at a big company for a few years now, and the work I do always requires teamwork and technical precision. However, Eliza is known by colleagues for being someone who does not pull her weight. She never follows procedure, which results in someone having to clean up after her to save projects. HR has basically moved her to every position possible, hoping she would fit somewhere so they don't have to fire her. But she recently made a huge mistake due to neglect that cost the company a big client. So a couple of weeks ago, HR called me and asked if I would be interested in filling the position Eliza currently holds. We even discussed salary and certain conditions. It seemed that Eliza's firing was being negotiated. Yet, Eliza arrives at the office the next day and, wouldn't you know, she just found out she's pregnant. which means she can no longer be fired at all. I was bummed out because HR immediately informed me that they can't afford to still promote me due to losing that big client, and Eliza's position isn't vacant anymore. But fine, I wouldn't want to have a pregnant woman fired over me anyway. The thing is that Eliza's mom, who she lives with, is a distant relative's friend. I only saw her in person a couple of times, and I'm sure Eliza has no idea about this since we never met at family gatherings and don't really know each other. But 3 days ago, I saw her mom at said relative's house and congratulated her on being a new grandma. She laughs and says Eliza was never pregnant at all. I must have heard a rumor that was wrong. I go home, and that night, said relative sends me a video taken that day of Eliza downing a whole bottle with the caption, 2-month pregnancy celebration, basically mocking me for thinking she's pregnant while Girly is out here getting drunk. I obviously haven't told anyone that I thought that because Eliza said it to everyone in the office. I just lost a huge opportunity and salary raise to someone who was so careless with her job, she cost the company a big client, and she was never pregnant. I know this is her private information, but she lied and will have to lie again about not having the baby, which will still protect her from being fired while under my country's law. Would I be the jerk if I anonymously report it so maybe HR investigates it further? I definitely don't want to send that video, even though it's evidence and it's timestamped. I feel like that's too far. What would you do in this situation? Would you report Eliza or not? Please let us know. I used to love watching the wild thornberries. I always wondered what happened to Eliza. Am I the jerk for hanging out outside a lot? Neighbors want more privacy. I have an apartment in a house that has been split up into apartments. The outdoor space is also split up, so each apartment has a personal outdoor space. The first floor is one apartment, and they have the back deck as an outdoor space. The second floor is another apartment, and they have a balcony and a front yard, and side yard is outdoor space. I have the third floor apartment, and my outdoor space is the backyard. On the right side of the house, there is an alley for shared access, and all of the tenants can cut through there. I was super excited to get a place with an outdoor spot of my own. My landlord also said I could build raised garden beds to garden as long as I keep them maintained and leave them in good shape when I move out. He was also fine with me getting some outdoor furniture, a few chairs, and a table with an umbrella to keep under the trees, and a hammock. So I spend a lot of time outdoors, working remotely, having friends over, reading books and painting, relaxing, gardening, exercising, etc. My landlord is super happy with this. I take really good care of the lawn and garden. But the neighbors, the family on the ground floor with the back deck, and the 2 guys on the second floor with the back balcony have gotten annoyed with me. The guys on the second floor haven't said anything directly to me, but I overheard them when I was going to bed one night, sitting on their balcony and talking about how, finally that jerk has gone inside. The family on the ground floor did say something to me. The couple told me that they're trying to raise their 2 kids, and it's good for their development to be able to play outside, and I am selfishly hogging the outside. I said that it's cool if they play outdoors too. After all, each apartment has its own personal outdoor area. It wouldn't bother me at all if they use theirs. They said that they want their kids and family to have more privacy and not always be watched. I said I wasn't watching. I'm busy with my own stuff, and if they had their kids playing out on the deck, I wouldn't pay them any mind. They said I was missing the point. It's uncomfortable to do stuff outdoors if there's always someone there. Like it would also be uncomfortable for their guests if they were having a nice dinner party out back and I was sitting right nearby. I said they could ask me for some privacy next time they wanted to host. I wouldn't mind. They said they don't want to ask every time. They want to use their space. I felt like they were asking me to just spend a lot less time outdoors, and that would honestly be a huge change, and it would really be disappointing because I only got this apartment for the personal outdoor space. The indoor space is kind of cramped and ugly. Would I be the jerk if I didn't change my habits and still spent a lot of time outdoors? Coworker upset about birthday stuff. Okay, so some backstory for context. I work in a private practice. I'm the phlebotomist. I draw blood and handle specimen collection for the office, and when I have downtime, I try to do what I can to help everyone out around the office, even though I technically don't have to. Unfortunately, I'm our only phlebotomist, so at the moment, I work 6 days a week. I have since October. Also working in the office are 2 MAs. One of them we'll call Mia, along with several NP students. I'm pretty good friends with one of the students currently doing their rotation here. We'll call her Francesca. Tomorrow is my birthday. I don't tend to talk about it a lot, and quite honestly, I try not to acknowledge it much. I have real bad birthday curse. Basically, every year, bad stuff happens on or around my birthday, so I don't tend to look forward to it. So far, already for this birthday, I found out that I have a detached retina and will be getting surgery to reattach it shortly after my birthday. My vision is still 2015. I may have a kidney stone, calcium oxalate crystals in my UA, and my anniversary necklace broke. Yesterday, I came into work, walked into the lab, and there was a Bath & Body Works gift bag, which I later found out had a bunch of stuff in it, along with a really sweet card sitting on my counter. After doing a little sleuthing, I found out that the bag was from Francesca, who remembered my birthday from a conversation we had about zodiac signs like 3 months ago. She wasn't sure if I would be at work today, Saturday, so she wanted to make sure I got my gift. I was super grateful, thanked her a whole bunch, it was great. Today I come into work and found flowers on my counter, also from Francesca. I found out later she had gotten a cake too, and had gotten candles and everything. I almost cried, it was so sweet of her, and no one has ever done anything like that for me. When she had gathered everyone for cake, Mia shortly said, "No thank you," and almost immediately left with her 8-year-old daughter, who she had brought into work today, and also did not clean up after her. When Francesca and I were talking later, she was telling me about how when she came in carrying the cake, Mia had asked her about it, and Francesca told her it was for my birthday. She wanted to surprise me. According to Francesca, Mia kindly huffed and pretty rudely said, "I didn't get anything like that for my birthday," which explains the attitude she had had all day. While I could understand being upset if it was something the office or the doctor had done for me and not her, this was literally just something thrown together last minute by a friend of mine who wanted to cheer me up. I could also understand her being upset about this if she didn't get anything for her birthday. However, she wasn't even at work for her birthday because her aunt had taken her on a fully paid 6-day vacation to Jamaica. It was supposed to be 5, but she stayed behind an extra day and no call no showed to work, so myself and the office manager got to do her job for that day. Then 2 weeks later, her aunt took her on another fully paid vacation to Cancun for 5 days. It was supposed to be 4, but she again stayed behind an extra day and no call no showed to work. Then, less than 2 weeks later, took another fully paid vacation to somewhere in Florida. But yeah, it's so sad no one at work got her a cake. Requested poolside and got mad about pool noise. For some context to help with the imagining of this story, all our units are full 2-bedroom condos with balconies. Our resort has a pool and a hot tub, both outdoor, on the south side of the building. They close at 10 p.m., which is also when our quiet hours begin. As you might expect, it's the beginning of summer and families are traveling. This means families are out at the pool all day. Kids have fun at the pool. Sometimes they're a bit noisy, but we usually leave them alone unless it's endless shrieking in the evening or night. Maintenance closed up the pool tonight at 10 as usual, and the families leaving were somewhat rowdy and not super quiet. 10:05, I received a phone call. Irritable guest. "The noise level at the pool is absolutely unacceptable. You need to deal with that immediately. The noise has been going on all evening, and we are trying to relax." Me. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. The pool is now closed, and quiet hours are beginning, so you shouldn't be bothered further." "I'm telling you, this is absolutely unacceptable. We can't even hear the television in our living room. We are here to relax, not to listen to all this noise from the pool." At this point, I had pulled up their reservation and discovered that not only were they 5 floors above the pool, but they also specifically requested to be placed on the poolside. I guess because they like the view better. Anyway, I had the lobby door open all night and definitely would have heard any unreasonable noise levels, which I didn't. Me. Unfortunately, I can't authorize any unit changes as we are fully occupied this weekend, but we'll do our best to keep an ear out for those noise levels over the next 4 days. "We do not want to move. We want there to be no more noise. Our vacation is being ruined." Man, at this point, I just don't know what to tell people. I get that they have the right to relax on vacation, but kids also have the right to have fun at the pool during non-quiet hours. How do you even deal with this kind of complaint? Am I the jerk for refusing to make any more meals for my girlfriend after she kept complaining about my cooking? Things have been great with my girlfriend for the most part. We, 28 female and 26 male, have been together for 4 years and living together for 2. Lately there's been some tension, so I feel like maybe that's why things may have boiled over. We both work a lot, so we have both been very cranky and moody, especially my girlfriend, who snapped at me a few times and has been in a really bad mood. For the past few days, what's really set her off is my cooking. I'm usually the one making breakfast, packing our lunches, and dinner. Literally any time I've been at the stove, she complains about how bad the smell is and gives me crap about using stuff that has obviously gone bad according to her, or saying it tastes bad and won't even finish eating. This has upset me. I'm not a chef, but I do pride myself in my cooking, and she's talking about how bad my food is. I've had my coworkers try my lunch, and they tell me it tastes just fine. I figured with all the stress she's under at work, she probably needed an outlet to let out her frustration, and maybe that's why she's giving me crap about simple things. I don't know. But I snapped a little this morning when she again complained about the omelet I was making us. So I actually dumped the eggs in the trash, told her she can make her own darn breakfast for herself then, and I'm not cooking for her anymore if she's gonna keep acting spoiled about what I make. We ended up having an argument over this, and we left for work mad. Anyways, my girlfriend didn't come home and her sister called me. My girlfriend's mad at me, and her sister thought I was being a jerk for reacting so immaturely by refusing to cook for her anymore when I know she works a lot. So sometimes she doesn't have the time to prep her own meals. I don't know why this was turned into a bigger deal, but here I am sitting at home wondering if I was being a jerk for losing my cool and telling her that I'm not cooking for her. Just didn't think it's fair for her to be talking crap about my cooking when she never has before, and thought, well, if she doesn't like it, then she can take over the kitchen. Was I the jerk? Customer wants items delivered to home, outraged when I ask him his address. First post on Reddit here, but binging all these posts reminds me of an incident that took place back in 2013 when I was working at a branch of a large upmarket department store chain in South London. I've moved on from this job a long time ago now, so please do forgive me if some of the details are a bit hazy, but here's the gist. A couple of blokes from Eastern Europe come in wanting to buy a kettle and asking what the options were for them to pick it up later. One of them did not speak. I suspect his English was not good. The other had reasonable English. I explained that they could pick it up right away as we had them in stock. If they wanted to, they could pick it up later in the day from Click and Collect, or for a fee, we could deliver it to their address, provided the address was in the UK or Ireland. They chose the delivery option. I put in the details of what they wanted to buy to the computer and came to the section where I had to put the delivery details. This was where the fun began. The conversation went something like this. Me: could I ask your address, please? Moron: why do you need to know my address? Me: because you said you wanted it delivered. Moron: but why do you need to know my address? That's how we know where to deliver your package. Otherwise, we won't know where to deliver it. But it's your job to know these things. Me: it's my job to ask you. I'm not a psychic, and I don't automatically know your address. Moron: but I don't feel comfortable giving my address out. I don't know you, and I want to preserve my privacy. Me: I understand that, sir, but if you won't give me your address, then I can't have your kettle delivered to you. There are 20 million addresses in the UK, and if I pick one at random, chances are it won't be yours. Now either you can tell me your address, or you can come pick it up at Click and Collect, or you can take it with you now. Moron: you're an idiot. At that point, I had enough, and his insult was a good enough pretext to end the conversation. I informed him that I was not going to be taking this kind of treatment and that I would not be serving him further. He muttered something to his friend in their language and moved away. Thankfully, I never saw them again, and no doubt he went to annoy some other underpaid customer service guy with his tomfoolery until he got his kettle. Aunt Karen stole my property. Now I'm evicting her. So I, 37 male, lost my mom back in 2016. At the time, my mom owned a small piece of land that her father and his wife lived on. In her will, the land was left to my sister and I, with a life deed that said as long as her father or his wife, who was more of a grandma to me than my biological grandma ever was, so I will refer to her as my grandma, were alive, they had a right to live on that land. My sister and I 100% supported this. Last week, I got a call from my grandma's daughter, letting me know that my grandfather had passed 3 days prior. Apparently, his daughters, my aunts T and J for this story, had convinced my grandfather to sign over possession of his mobile home that he and his wife lived in on my property while he was in hospice. When he passed, they intentionally did not let my sister or I know about it. They did the same thing when my mom's mother passed, so this wasn't too unexpected of them. However, I then found out that they were trying to claim the land was theirs as well. They have served my grandma with an eviction notice while she is in the hospital. Eviction notice was just a letter that they wrote and signed. They also almost emptied my grandfather's and grandmother's joint banking accounts and may have had him sign over his life insurance policy. This last part I'm not 100% certain about as I haven't seen documents on this, but it wouldn't surprise me. As sleazy as it is, I don't know if I can legally get the signing of the mobile home reversed. I went down over the weekend and took photos of the property when I found not only did they post no trespassing signs on my property, not the mobile home but the land itself, and a for sale sign for the mobile home and the land. This thoroughly enraged me. When I called the police, I was told they would not intervene as this was a civil matter and needed to be dealt with by the courts. So I took down the for sale sign, went home, and typed up my own eviction letter and posted it to their trailer, basically stating that with a change in ownership of the mobile home, it was now illegally parked on my property and that it needed to be removed immediately. I also stated that my Aunt Jay, who is now the owner of said mobile home, would not only be responsible for the costs of removing the trailer, but for repairs to the property as well caused by the trailer, resodding the yard under where it sits. Had they tried to simply claim my land was theirs, I would have only gone to court and defended my ownership of the property. But they instead are doing over my grandma. I'm very angry right now, so I ask Reddit to judge me and let me know if I'm in the wrong or if I'm in the right. Would I be the jerk for filing a motion with the court to stop them from selling the trailer while it's on my land and forcing them to remove it at their cost? Every single time that I walk into Home Depot, legitimately every single time I set foot in Home Depot, someone will start asking me where things are. I wear a uniform for my job, black cargo type work jeans and a gray short sleeve button-up shirt that's tucked in with a large, very recognizable local company logo. Let's just say that everyone knows the company I work for. If you so much as glance at the logo, you know who I work for. It's that type of recognizable and looks nothing like the orange smock with the Home Depot written across the front of it. Usually I'll just smile and say, "Sorry, I don't work here," and that's the end of it. Well, Karen didn't like my whole bit about not working there because I looked like someone that worked there, and she wanted S-hooks and wanted them now. She has planners that must be hung today, and she wants the hooks immediately. Me: "Oh, you need them immediately, do you? Well, I get mine from Lowe's." Karen:
What is that supposed to mean? Are you telling me to go to a different store?
Me: "I would. The S-clips here suck." Karen:
You must not like your job too much. I bet your manager will love to hear this.
Me: "Okay, I'm pretty sure he's on another site, but I can give you his number and you can give him a call."
Darn right, I'll call him.
Here's where it gets interesting as she proceeds to aggressively dial the number. See, I've told my boss about this happening to me, and he doesn't believe me. He's about to learn. Boss: "Hello, this is so-and-so with major corporation that is not Home Depot. How can I help you?" Karen:
Yes, hello. I would like to speak to you about... What is your name?
Me: "Rudiger Simpson, ma'am."
Rudiger just told me to go to a different store to purchase my products.
Boss: "Yup, Rudiger definitely knows where to get his stuff."
Well, I just asked him where S-hooks are, and he told me to go to Lowe's.
Boss: "Well, if he said Lowe's, then Lowe's is probably the best bet."
I don't want to go to Lowe's. How can you allow your staff to send people to the competition?
Boss: "Competition? We don't have any competition. Who is this and why are you calling me?"
Your employee is rude and would not help me find what I'm looking for.
Boss: "Is he?" Boss describes me to a T. Karen:
That's him. I guess you've had trouble with him before.
Boss: "Nope. Are you at Home Depot? Did he say something about not working there?"
Multiple times. I know he works here. I saw him helping someone else. He just doesn't want to help me.
Boss: "Goodness, is this what is happening here? He told me that people keep doing this to him, and I thought he was full of crap. He does not work for Home Depot. Tell," uses my real name, "to stop messing with people. Purchase what he's there to purchase and get to his next job site. I'm not paying him to hang out in a hardware store dealing with morons." Karen:
Did you just call me a moron? Because I want someone to do their job?
Yes, I called you a moron because..." He then launches into a tirade about orange smocks and how I don't work there. Something about wasting time, yada yada. Karen:
You are also extremely rude, and I want to speak to your manager.
Boss, wow, okay. I can absolutely guarantee that you do not want to waste his time with this, but here is his number. Feel free to explain it to him. I can hardly wait to see what his reaction is going to be. But until then, my employee is going to need to finish his shopping and get back to work, if that is okay with you. I would suggest either going to Lowe's, where he said you could find your clips, or find a Home Depot employee. Then he hung up. Me. Phone rings. It's the super, so I put it on speaker. Hey, what's up? Boss. Holy cow. I just got a call from some nut that thinks you work at Home Depot. Haha, you weren't kidding. I gave her Big Boss's number. He's going to laugh his butt off when she calls. She literally will not hear that you don't work there. Me. I know. She's still here and still expecting something. I'll deal with this and call you back. I just wanted you to hear it from her own mouth before the inevitable complaint comes in. Karen.
This is unacceptable. I'm going to call the corporate office and tell them all about this situation.
Me. Okay, I can make it super easy with a direct line. Here is the 3-digit number needed to call and make a complaint, or you can go on the website.
But that's the major corporation's contact number.
Me. I know, because that is who I work for, not Home Depot.
But you said you worked here, and I need help.
Goodness, lady. Okay, you got me. They are in aisle 4. I then turned my back and walked away to get my stuff. I'm walking towards the cash when I see Karen, and who I'm guessing is the store manager. As soon as she sees me, she starts pointing and saying,
That's him. That's the employee that told me to go to Lowe's.
Manager. He obviously doesn't work here. Our employees wear orange smocks with Home Depot on them. He is wearing Major Corporation's logo on his shirt and has a security badge on his waist. What makes you think he works here? He's shopping. Karen.
He told me.
Manager looks at me confused. I shrug my shoulders and proceed to walk past them to the register to purchase my stuff.
Well, are you going to say something?
Manager. To who and what about?
To your employee who is trying to leave.
Manager. Has a very concerned look on his face now. Are you here alone, or do you have a companion that you're supposed to be with? Do you need me to call someone for help? Do you usually get confused like this? You could hear the concern in this poor guy's voice. Karen.
How dare you? Something.
She was still yelling and demanding that I do not leave the store as I was walking to my van. I wonder how far that actually went after I left. Edit. Reread the bit about the manager and what he said about the lady needing help. He said that. I don't know why he said that, but it was funny as heck, meaning that you don't need to go on and on about the mental health of the country. Either laugh and move on, or just move on. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend my ex comes first? I know the title sounds bad, but hear me out. I, male 37, was with my ex-wife, female 36. We will call her Elaine, for 15 years. We were high school boyfriend and girlfriend and married after university. We have 3 kids, all boys, 9, 8, and 5. We divorced a few years ago and have remained friendly so we can co-parent our boys as easily as possible. She is remarried and I get along with her new husband, who seems to be a good stepdad to my kids. I was single for a while as I focused on my boys and work, but I met my girlfriend, who we'll call Nicole, who's 27, about 3 months ago. I haven't introduced her yet to my kids, which has been upsetting her, but I've told her that 3 months for me is not a long enough or committed enough relationship to involve my kids yet. I do not want them getting attached or otherwise uncomfortable until I know for sure that this is the real deal. It was Elaine's birthday last week, and I told Nicole that I would be doing for her what I always do with our boys, and I wouldn't be available until later in the day. Nicole was upset with this as she wanted us to spend the day together, but it wasn't for anything special. Anyways, sorry this is dragging. Anyway, what I do on my ex's birthday is I go over in the morning, and with our sons, I help them make her breakfast. I get some flowers and a nice card and a present from them, and then they take it to her and give her breakfast in bed. My sons love doing this for their mom, and I always like to hear how happy it all makes them. Nicole was angry I did this, as she said it made her feel less important and like she would never come to ever mean as much to me in my life. I replied that Elaine is the mother of my kids, and that even though we are not in a relationship or in love, we have our boys, and I want our boys to grow up knowing that I always treated Elaine with respect even though we are no longer together. I do not want them thinking that we never cared about each other. Nicole says she doesn't want me doing this again whilst I'm in a relationship with her, and that I am the jerk for not putting her feelings first. She said it's obvious I still love Elaine, and I won't even give up this one day to put her over Elaine. I told her that I will always have a love for Elaine, as we were together a long time and have 3 kids, and nothing will ever change that. Nicole said if I do not promise to begin to restrict communication with my ex to make it just about the kids, she doesn't see how I can ever prove to her I care about her. So Reddit, am I the jerk for doing this for my ex on her birthday when I knew it would upset my girlfriend? Edit. Just to clarify, I do not take the breakfast to her in bed. Our oldest carries the tray. I just help the boys make the breakfast, and they go and present it to their mom. Edit 2. Wow, lots of responses. Thank you for taking the time to read and respond. I've answered some comments, and I will add the extra details people need clarifying. Her new husband and I will talk and have coffee and watch TV while the kids take the breakfast up. Her husband is the one who will have the boys awake and let me in so the kids and I can make the breakfast. Her husband will generally take Elaine out for dinner or plan something special, so I might end up taking the kids so they can be alone, as I understand he is now her husband and I have a diminished role in her life, but not my kids. The tradition started with my oldest when he was little and wanted to do something special for his mom on her birthday, so we've carried it on together as the boys have come along. I do understand in a couple of years they will be old enough to do this themselves and not need my help, but I enjoy spending this time with them to do something nice for their mother. Elaine did not initiate the divorce. I did. The marriage ended amicably as possible as we just grew apart. There was no big fight, no infidelity. We were just 2 adults making a decision that we would be happier apart than together. And we are. I was the youngest in a very messy divorce when I was a kid, and my parents used to be awful to each other. I did not want that kind of memory lingering for my own kids just because we did decide to divorce. No, it was not Nicole's birthday or a special event. She has not yet had a birthday in our relationship. I had planned to do something special for her birthday, which is in December, if we were still together at that time. As said, our relationship is still very new. I did tell Nicole that Elaine and our kids came first on that day only, Elaine's birthday. This is simply due to the tradition I have with my sons. I can see why she took it out of context, but I didn't mean Elaine comes first always, but I did say my boys always will. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his new girlfriend? Please let us know. You never bring me breakfast in bed. Always make friends with the other side of the house. Back in the day, I worked at a buffet, my first job, attached to the busiest mall in our 3-mall state. We could do $1,500 for dinner, no problem. The problem was in our equipment. We had a conveyor belt style dishwasher. Think mini drive-through car wash with an attitude problem and a chronic illness. It was installed when the restaurant was opened 30 years prior. It was a beast, a very broken beast. My first year there, I was just a line attendant, so I changed out the food. My second year, I started getting prep cook, floor, and cashier shifts. This meant that I was one of the people who could do anything front of house needed. I wasn't put in the dish room for 2 reasons. I didn't speak Spanish, and the GM said it was a man's job. That man is for a different sub. You guessed it. Friday night dinner rush. I'm bouncing between tables, helping some of the other table staff out. Not taking tips, of course. Filling out the front line with food and popping up to the register when I can, trying to help with the line of customers that's out the door and around the corner. General manager and assistant general manager are slinging food with their ties over their shoulders. We are all giving 110%. A well-oiled machine. Now I see it. Empty plate towers here, there, almost everywhere. Dread suddenly consumes my body. And then we all hear it. You've got to be kidding me. And the whirl of the dishwasher goes silent. The beast is down. We all look up at our angry leader like prairie dogs and can see the danger veins on his forehead. Well, no point in ringing in customers if we don't have plates to serve them on, so I bail on the register and follow my GM to the dish room where complete chaos has overwhelmed the 3 seasoned dishwashers. GM crawls under the dishwasher to access the part that is usually the culprit, full on laying in a few inches of questionable water with half-chewed dinner rolls and lettuce floating around him. He could be a jerk when he was stressed, but he always jumped in first to do the worst stuff rather than to make someone else do it. Kept a change of clothes in the office for the occasion. Much grumbling ensues. The 3 dish guys are already elbow deep in the 3-stage sinks hand washing. Trash is overflowing, clogging the floor drain. Murky water and wet food is everywhere. My specialty. I grab the floor squeegee and start raking food up and away from the drain, relieving all of us from the standing water. I heap the food goo formerly occupying the drain space onto the trash can that is so full I cannot even lift it, and steal the empty cans from the unused stations on the kitchen side and start clearing plates of the old food. There aren't gloves in the world to keep it off you. The food just gets inside them and you're working in that. It splashes up into your face and on your clothes, but you can't stop because customers are coming in the back of house door to yell that there aren't any plates. They are beginning to mutiny. Whatever you do, don't stand between a hungry buffet guest and their fifth plate of food. There's a flurry of hands as we crank through the dinner plate mountain with our words, the silverware, and finally just enough life pans to keep the cooks happy. 2 of the 3 guys disappear to restock and grab our angry waitstaff bus carts. When a waitress or waiter clears the table, they have a station with a cart, so it's basically a station where they can complain about their lives while clearing plates, sorting silverware and slamming dishes into the tubs. When they were even mildly full, the habit was to whine at the guys in the dish room who never complained because they would get tipped out by the waitstaff at the end of the night and didn't want their tips affected. This is important later. Leaving grumbling GM under the beast of the only dish guy fluent in English to my left, dealing with the clean end as I was too dirty to be touching the good stuff. Dish guy: why are you back here? Me: the dishwasher broke? Dish guy: yeah, it always does. Why do you care? None of the other front of house people have ever helped before. You're here elbow deep in the nastiest part when you could be dry out front with everyone else. Me: well, if everyone else is out front, then they won't be missing me. Besides, another set of hands will help us get caught up faster. Plus, I can yell all I want back here, and no one will hear me. Bus carts arrive, and we are swamped again. GM has declared we need the service guy to come out for the busted beast, so he rolls up his sleeves, still soaking wet, and does the dirty stuff on the incoming dishes. I move up a sink, and the 5 of us work until midnight, washing it all by hand, having turned the ship around for a flawless night. GM, after complimenting my ability to hold my own with the guys, to be fair, it was my first job. I was barely 18 and a petite 90 pounds soaking wet. If one were to make assumptions, I didn't look like I could lift a ream of paper, let alone a full dinner plate rack and keep the pace, bumped me and the other guy up to maintenance pay for the whole shift, $15.75, when minimum wage was around $6.50, but we made 11 or so. And if we would come in tomorrow, he would do it again. Next day, we were at it again until the repair. We were able to stay on top and keep up with demand since we were well prepared. Even with a language barrier and an overwhelming task, we were able to joke around and laugh throughout the shift. Here's where the tipping is important, and where I accidentally spark a revolution. I should also mention that we did not do credit card tips. All tips were cash and honor reporting. My next floor shift is kinda slow for us, and I tip out 10% as I was told was customary, so it was 15. My bilingual dish guy comes out with the money in his hand to give it back to me. Dish guy: you don't have to do this, you know. Me, very confused: I thought we were supposed to tip out at the end of our shift. Dish guy: yeah, but only 10%. This is too much. Me, more confused: No, I made $150 tonight. It's the right amount. Dish guy: it can't be. You're the only one that ever tips out this much. All the other girls never give more than $5 on a day like this. Maybe $10 on a very, very busy night. On very busy nights, I could make $300. Me: I know for a fact they each, the 2 other waitresses, made more than that tonight because I had to watch them brag count their tips in front of me. Our waitstaff had attitude. We're the worst kind of people, and I to this day feel zero guilt about this. They're lying to you. Dish guy had been taking my overpayments, thinking I was trying to win him over with money, was mildly insulted by it, and didn't have time to get to know me until we were in the thick of it when the dishwasher broke. Waitstaff had been underpaying him for years, and he's rightfully upset. He happens to live with the other 2 dish guys who work the busy shifts, brother and a family friend. They shared a 1-bedroom apartment here to send as much money home to their families as they could. He was also related to some of the female line staff who shared another 1-bedroom apartment. Needless to say, word spread quickly. For the next 2 weeks, I was the only waitress who didn't have to bus her own cart. GM fully supported the dish room strike against the waitresses. I barely even had dishes that stacked before my cart would be replaced with a clean one. Throw up in my section? I'd go out back to start assembling the necessities only to be shooed away by one of the dish guys so that they could do it. Everyone else was handed the rags and buckets and told to do it themselves. Previously, the waitstaff would tell the dish guys it was solely their job, when in fact it was not. This also applied to bathroom issues. By week 3, the waitstaff, who thought they could outlast the dish guys, were making a full hourly rate and didn't need the additional $15 in tips they were collectively withholding from them for the hassle, caved hard. Actual tears, because it was affecting their tips since they couldn't do waitressing, bus carts, and keep up. Basically, they started to actually have to work during their usual social breaks, and they found out it was hard. I still got mild preferential treatment for the rest of my time there. My cart would get changed before everyone else. I never had to ask for anything. If something needed doing that I couldn't manage, one of them would drop what they were doing to help, and I would be the first one to jump in when they got really busy out back. Honestly, it made my job so much easier and enjoyable. I'd still be there if there hadn't been a corporate takeover of our site that overmanaged and ruined everything. Moral of the story, don't be a dishonest jerk, especially to the other side of the house. You honestly think this is for anyone to ride? Some preamble to set the scene. I'm really into cycling and have been for many, many years. I started riding back in the 1970s when I was really young. I come from a family of road racers, so it was sort of inevitable. I also live up to the rules of the Veluminati, especially Rule 25 about the bikes on the roof of the car being worth more than the car. Having saved up, I bought my dream bike, a Cervelo Celadania 5 with Dura Ace D2 electronic gear shifters. This bike cost me almost 11,000 pounds. A couple of months ago, I heard of an event running around 50 miles away where a company was launching a few of their new bikes. I decided to spin over and have a look just out of interest and set off. It was a great ride over there, and when I arrived, there were a few other riders I know, and we set off looking at the bikes at the show. I locked my bike onto one of the racks and took one of the newly launched bikes out for a quick circuit, had a chat with the tech guy from the company, and then unlocked my bike. Cue entitled mom and her entitled spotty teenager. Karen: hello, can my son have his turn on that bike now? Me: what? Yes, you've had your turn on it, and my son wants his ride on it. He really likes it. Me: sorry, he can't ride this. Perhaps look at some of the bikes the company has brought. No, we saw you have your ride on this bike. Now he wants his turn. You can't monopolize the bikes. Her son then made a grab for my bike and pulled it from my hands and tried to ride off. Now his first mistake was not realizing that I have very specific lipless pedals, and without the correct cleats, you're not going to get far. Second, I had left the bike in a very high gear. It's a cafe stop thing. It's almost impossible to set off quickly and is one of my ruses to help avoid a snatch and grab theft of the bike. I grabbed the little jerk and pulled him off my bike and just stopped it from falling to the floor. One of the team running the demo came over to see what was going on, and entitled mom went off in true form. This jerk has just pushed my kid off the bike when it was my kid's turn to ride it. I want my son to have his ride on this bike now. Bike guy: this isn't one of our bikes. Our bikes are all over there. This is the visitor's bike park area. Why is he riding this bike then? Pointing at me. Me: because I'm the one who owns this bike. You could see the cogs turning as she realized what was going on. The fake smile broke out. Oh, I'm really sorry. I thought it was one of the demo bikes. I pointed to the manufacturer's flags all around the demo session, and I pointed to the name on my bike. Me: does this look like it was made by the company running this session? Entitled mom playing dumb. I'm sorry, I really didn't realize. It's a nice bike though, and my son is thinking of buying one. Can he try yours out? Me: I very much doubt he would be buying one of these, but I'm going to need your details. Why? Well, your son, supported by you, snatched at a bike worth 11,000 pounds out of my hands and tried to ride off with it. I'm going to need to know who to send the repair bill to for any damage he caused. She went white, then tried to argue that there was nothing on the bike that could have cost that much. The bike guy from the company assured her that there certainly was. We called the PCSO who was at the event over and explained everything that had happened. He obtained the entitled mom's contact details and passed them to me. I told her I would be in touch later and then had a ride back home. No damage was done to the bike, but I did sting her for a full service at my local bike shop. Am I the jerk for losing it after my husband ate from the lasagna I prepared for my niece's birthday? My niece's, 13, birthday was last Wednesday. She's the most intelligent, most creative kid in the family. She loves her auntie's, me, lasagna and says that it's really good. For her birthday, she asked that I make her lasagna because she loves it so much and having it will complete her happy day. I agreed with no hesitation. The day before her birthday, I got to work. I went shopping for ingredients and had spent hours in the kitchen to prepare it. At 3 p.m., my husband got home, had lunch, then opened the fridge to grab a drink and saw the lasagna. He asked about it, and I answered this lasagna was made for my niece's birthday. I told him I made a family-sized portion so we could all eat it together there at my parents' house. He was like, "Oh, really?" I asked him to please not touch it, and he said he wouldn't. He fell asleep on the couch after checking his phone as I went upstairs to get stuff done. At 4 p.m., I come downstairs to wake him up to go to my parents and found him already sitting up with a plate in his hand. I looked closer and saw that he took a piece of lasagna and ate it. I looked at him and asked, "Are you okay? Hungry?" While offering leftovers from his plate, I lost it on him and asked why he had touched the lasagna when I already warned against touching it since it was for my niece's party. He said, "I woke up feeling hungry." Okay, but he already had lunch and the other snacks are available in the fridge. He replied he really wanted to get a piece and couldn't wait until we got to my parents and reminded me that he loses his appetite at my parents' house. I called him unbelievable because he ruined how the lasagna looked when he cut the middle of it and messed it up like a kid. I spent time, money, effort on it, and he casually said, "No big deal." But to me, it is, especially since I told him that this was for my niece's party. He said I was overreacting and needed to chill because he was hungry, and it's not like he ate the whole thing. And then he suggested I stop by the supermarket and grab one if it's that important, as he quoted with his fingers. We got into an argument over this, and he ended up not going, saying it's because of how I treated him over lasagna. When I got home, he kept giving me the cold shoulder. Didn't even ask how things went after what he did. My husband has ADHD, but normally he understands when I ask him to leave stuff alone. He also loves food, and his favorite is lasagna. While there was no harm with him taking a piece, I just lost my temper, which is a bad thing. This might be too spicy for you. My mom told me this story last weekend of something that happened to her back in the late 70s, early 80s. She worked in a belt factory that employed a diverse array of people, folks from all over the world and with different backgrounds. One of the friends my mom made was Azra, a lady from India. Azra found out that my mom liked food from other countries, so she started bringing in homemade Indian food for her to try. Azra also learned that my mom liked spicy food, so she would bring in her homemade pickle. Indian pickle is nothing like American pickles, which are sweet or pleasantly sour. Indian pickles can be extremely spicy, but my mom was friendly and willing to try new things, so she happily ate whatever Azra brought her. One day at lunch, Azra gave my mom a container of cooked rice and some mango pickle. This particular pickle was wildly hot, but by now my mom had built up a tolerance for the spiciness and eagerly tucked in. The factory also employed men who were on work release from a nearby prison. Some of these guys were cool and trying to put their past behind them. Not Sylvester. He was a real jerk, always being mean to people, including my mom. While mom was eating the rice and mango pickle, Sylvester came up to her and said, all tough-like, "What's that you're eating?" "Oh," responded mom, "it's Indian rice and mango pickle." "Give me some," demanded Sylvester. This isn't the first time Sylvester had bothered my mom, but she thought she could make it the last. Batting her eyelashes instantly, she said, "I'm not sure you'd like it, Sylvester. It's pretty spicy." But like the rude bully he was, he insisted she give him a taste. So she gave him a big spoonful of rice, making sure there was plenty of mango pickle to give it some flavor. Sylvester grabbed the spoon and shoved the food into his mouth. As a big, tough guy, he couldn't let on that the food was anything but delicious, but it was clear that he was suffering. He finally swallowed it down, and after that, he left my mother alone. Karen cheated with her best friend's boyfriend, ends up getting humiliated. My sister, Sia, who's 25, used to have a best friend named Faye, who is 24. Faye had a boyfriend named Brett, who is 25. Brett cheated on Faye with Sia, then he left her for Sia. Faye was devastated, but it really tore their friend group apart. Faye went on to transfer to an out-of-state college and from what I know has not been back since. This was about 4 years ago. Now, Sia and Brett are recently married, about 2 months, and that's where this issue comes in. Sia figured out how to get a hold of Faye and decided to invite her to the wedding. She said that her and Brett both missed Faye as they had all been part of the same friend group through high school. She felt like this was her last chance to try and bring Faye back into her life. I, 19 female, told her from the get-go that I thought this was a bad idea and that she should just leave Faye alone. She sent the invitation anyways, but got no response. It's relevant to mention that Sia and Brett could only afford a pretty modest wedding. They held it on his parents' property. It was catered by a very basic, cheap local restaurant. Everything else was done by family and friends. The dress code was casual, which was mentioned on the invite as Sia couldn't afford a very nice wedding gown. Shortly after the ceremony started, Faye walked in and quietly took a seat. To be frank, she looked amazing. She was in a lovely dress. It was a darker color and didn't look like a wedding dress, but was of noticeably better quality than Sia's dress was. She's super tatted now. Tattoos are popular around here and are something Sia and Brett both like. After the ceremony, Faye stayed for about half an hour talking to the other guests, then left. I guess Sia tried to say hi to her and she straight up snubbed her. It created quite a stir. How good she looked was a hot topic. Quite a few of Sia and Brett's newer friends found out the circumstances of their coming together. Sia was pretty torn up about it in the first place, but once she went through the pictures, she was heartbroken. Faye made it into a few, and because she was dressed so much nicer than everyone else, she really stood out. There's a picture of Sia and Brett where they look really nice together, but Faye is in the background. She has brought Faye up every time I've seen her since. Sia came over for a visit this weekend and started talking about Faye again. What a jerk she was. Why couldn't she just not have come? Who needs to ruin someone else's wedding? It got to me, so I asked, what did you expect? You hooked up with her boyfriend before he decided to leave her for you. You haven't spoken in years, and out of nowhere you send her a wedding invite? Who could pass up that opportunity for pretty revenge? ETA. This might be a pointless edit, but I don't think Sia's goal was to rub anything in Faye's face. From what I understand, Sia basically just never talked to Faye again after everything went down. I think this was a weird, convoluted attempt for Sia to ease some guilt. I think she thought that Faye just wouldn't attend, so she would be able to feel like she extended the olive branch and was ignored, therefore having done everything she could. It made Sia cry, and she ended up leaving shortly after. Karen accused me of stealing my own car and got me arrested by a very gullible cop. I live in one of those middle-of-nowhere desert towns where almost everyone knows everyone and it's hot as heck, but dirt cheap to buy a home or land in. And it's not uncommon for old cars to last out here as they almost never rust and people keep fixing them. After high school, I worked my butt off at a local job to get my own place. I ended up buying a small plot of land with a trailer on it off of a local guy that decided he was going to move to Texas, and the guy also sold me his old Ford Escort prior to that. It was an okay first car. Got me around well enough. Still have it too. 10 years have gone by since then, and for a while I spent a lot of my time tinkering with an old 87 Monte Carlo that I bought super cheap as it was without an engine or a transmission. I loved that car as an older cousin of mine had one when I was a kid, and I always wanted one of my own. I spent 2 years fixing up the one that I got with help from some friends and finished it in 2019. Since the engine was missing, I dropped in a junkyard Chevy 305 V8 that was connected to a rebuilt 4-speed automatic transmission with low miles from a totaled car. Then I painted it myself inside a friend's garage with a Harbor Freight sprayer and some GM black single-stage gloss paint and buffed it to a shine. And I finished it up with some gold Monte Carlo decals and some classic moon rims I bought from the local junkyard and polished up. I also partially redid the interior by replacing the seats and put in a custom steering wheel. I'm not really a mechanic, but my friends all helped me. And online how-to videos on my smartphone really helped me as well. The car was fun to drive and looked good, and I kept it in good order. That is, until this mess went down. Now, I didn't really trust some of the local law enforcement out here before, and this gave me even more of a reason not to. A lot of the cops around here are barely qualified for their jobs. They're practically hired with a handshake and just told to play Doom for training. Granted though, many of them are really nice. The sheriff is even kind of a friend of mine, but he's really one of the only competent ones around here. Most of the rest really don't do their jobs very well, especially whenever a new one gets hired on. Like a guy that went out of his way to move to my town just to get to be a cop. In this case, he was the nephew of the sheriff. He even bought his own Crown Vic with a loudspeaker to drive around town in. Let's call this guy NC for Nephew Cop, since he was the sheriff's nephew. Nephew Cop and I didn't really know each other personally yet, but I was aware of him. He was dumb as a rock and high on his own ego. He was like Barney Fife and John Cena had an illegitimate son together, because he was a tall, strong-looking man that was always giving people creepy looks and patrolled on foot up and down Main Street with a clipboard in hand and a big grin on his face. He also liked to publicly flex his muscles in front of people. One Saturday morning, I took my Monte Carlo out to meet a friend, but they ended up bailing because of a last-minute issue with their girlfriend. I thought, nah, no problem. I'll just get some fast food and go home. I went to the local burger place to get a meal to go. And as I was walking out, there was a lady outside looking at my car. People would stop here and there to ask me about my car and where I got it. I usually don't mind talking so long as they're polite, though this lady ended up anything but. She was curvy and good looking while wearing a black skirt. I'm guessing early to mid-30s or so, not really sure. I asked her if she liked my car. She stood up, took one look at me, and laughed. I asked her what was so funny. To get an idea of what I looked like at the time, I was a skinny guy with a scraggly beard and was wearing a faded AC/DC t-shirt with the sleeves ripped off, along with worn-out, cut-off denim shorts and flip-flops. I guess she figured I was poor or something, so she probably was judging my appearance. She looked me up and down in a very obvious way and then said, "There's no way this is your car. You couldn't possibly afford something this nice." Now, I have a tendency to get sarcastic or snide when people make assumptions about me, so I said back, "Oh, really, lady? This title is in my name, and these keys right here in my hand say I'm the owner too." The Karen just glared at me as I put the keys in my lock and began to open the door. I looked behind her and I noticed a beige 90s Volvo with a missing headlight, and it had out-of-state plates on it, parked not far from me. I put two and two together and laughed. "Let me guess, lady, that's your car over there?" She started to turn beet red. I laughed and said, "Oh, don't be ashamed. Those things aren't lookers, but they'll run forever." I figured this was over, but as I was opening my car door, I suddenly felt her nails digging into my shoulder. She was screeching so loud, my ears were hurting, and before I could turn around, she kicked me between my legs from behind with a high-heeled shoe so hard that I collapsed in agony. And true to my luck, Nephew Cop drove right up because he had heard her screeching from down the street during his noon patrol. As soon as Nephew Cop was out of his car, the Karen ran to him crying and saying that I was a carjacker that was attempting to take her new car. I wasn't looking at either of them as I was on the ground, wincing in a fetal position from the pain. The next thing I heard was Cop yelling, "Put your hands behind your back!" And then I was being pinned down by his knee on my back and forcefully cuffed. I tried telling the cop that I knew his uncle and I could prove I'm the real owner of the car, but he called me names and told me to shut up. Then he picked my keys up off of the ground and actually handed them to the Karen. Then he seemed to do a hero pose while she gave me a crap-eating grin. No matter what I said, the cop wasn't listening to me because he fully believed her. And then I had to see Karen start up my car and drive off with it. My heart sank as I watched it sail down the road with her driving it. Then the cop dragged me back to the sheriff's office. I had hoped his uncle was in, but just my luck, he was out to lunch. So Nephew Cop put me in the cell and told me to just keep quiet. I was upset, but I knew I wasn't going to make my situation any better, so I just waited. And during that time, Nephew Cop kept giving me looks of contempt. At one time, he walked across the cell with a nightstick, grazing it against each bar like he was trying to intimidate me. At least an hour went by, and the sheriff finally came in through the door, nursing a big gulp, but froze the second he saw me. "OP, what are you doing here?" he asked. I was about to speak when Nephew Cop jumped in and said, "I caught this low-life creep trying to steal a lady's car, so I hauled him in." That's when I finally got my chance to speak and said, "Yeah, only it was my car, the one you know I spent so long fixing up." Nephew Cop just rolled his eyes and said not to listen to me, but the sheriff silenced him and asked my full story. As I tried to tell it, Nephew Cop was making dismissive looks and kept repeatedly interrupting until the sheriff told him to sit down and shut up. Then, when I was finally able to say everything that happened, he was furious. The sheriff laid into his nephew, who was cowering in his chair like a little kid, and saying that it indeed was my car, and he stupidly gave my keys to a thief that had assaulted me. Nephew Cop started frantically apologizing and trying to say that he was just trying to help. But the sheriff called him an idiot that just wanted to play hero by saving a damsel in distress. And now the whole department would be in hot water for his unlawful arrest and his physical assault against me. Then he finally let me out of the cell. I got some ice for my cuts and got taken home. The sheriff and Nephew Cop went back to the burger restaurant, but the Karen's car was no longer there. They got the CCTV footage from the camera the restaurant had looking outside. It caught everything minus the audio. The Karen came back riding piggyback with a guy on a motorcycle over a half hour from the time that she left with my car. She blew him a kiss and then drove off in her Volvo. The sheriff scrambled everyone, even Nephew Cop, to try and chase her down, but they couldn't find her as she had already driven out of the county lines. Some phone calls were made to other departments to look for her, as I had to sit at home with an ice pack on myself all evening waiting for news on what had happened. A couple days later, my car was found just a few miles out of town. The Karen had broken all of the windows with what I'm assuming was the tire iron and then put the car in neutral and let it coast down a deep rocky hill, which rolled it into the bottom ditch, which smashed the front end and warped the frame. It was completely totaled. I wanted to cry from the sound of metal grinding on rock as the tow truck pulled it back up. Nephew Cop was there too, and he couldn't even look at me the entire time. My insurance also didn't want to cover the car, so the sheriff's office was made to pay me for the value of my Monte Carlo instead, since Nephew Cop let it happen, which was only about $5,000, though that was honestly close to what I had put into it since I did almost all the work by hand with the help of friends. Nephew Cop also paid me another $2,000 for my trouble and said it was most of his savings. The Karen was caught at a motel a state over sometime later and arrested for all kinds of other things. Grand theft auto was just one of the many things she was charged with. I got a video call just to see her in court and testify. She looked like a wreck the whole time because she knew that she was done for, and it wasn't long before she was pronounced guilty. She got 10 years behind bars and no possibility of parole. As for Nephew Cop, the sheriff all but begged me not to sue him because he was his nephew and he promised his sister he'd look out for the guy. I'm not a sue-happy person, so I let it go, provided Nephew Cop actually takes some sort of course on how to properly do his job. And so the incident was more or less rug-sweeped, and Nephew Cop was demoted to sitting at a desk all day answering phones, and they would be docking part of his pay until every penny was paid back. He's still regulated to desk duty half of the time these days, and he still avoids me anytime I'm near him. Arguably, he's a better cop now though, because he's mellowed out. As for me now, it took some time, but with help, I finally located a replacement Monte Carlo project car with a clean title, and it was the same year too. I salvaged as many parts as I could from my old one and used it all in the build. The engine and transmission were still good, so were most of the base parts, and the sheriff personally came by to help my friends and I build the new car in his downtime. It took a year, but now I've got a fresh-looking Monte Carlo that looks just like my old one. You'd never know they weren't the same car. I've made sure to have better insurance this time around, and I'll be darned if I ever let a Karen near my car again. What happens when engineering students are asked to truck-proof a mailbox? Yes, I know there are a lot of mailbox stories on here, but I just learned this story from my dad involving my Uncle Dale, a family friend who passed a few months ago, and figured you guys would get a kick out of it. Years ago, back when Uncle Dale and Dad were university students, their engineering professor came to their class with a problem that needed solving. His mailbox was getting broken by someone driving by every night. He and his wife had put up something like 4 or 5 mailboxes, and all 4 or 5 times, the mailbox had been knocked over by someone driving a red truck. This professor offered extra credit to any group of students who could come up with a truck-proof mailbox that not only fit with the city regulations, but within a budget of $20, which back then was a good-sized chunk of change. Well, if anyone here knows anything about engineers, as Dad puts it, they love solving problems, and if it's engineering students, they'll make it an experience to remember. Dad and Uncle Dale got together and got to work. They found a steel bar that fit within mailbox regulations. Posts have to be a specific height, width, and depth, and filled the inside with a mixture of concrete and steel rebars. Once the concrete had cured, they welded 8 rebars to the sides of the bar, bent them in half, and stuck it inside of a bucket. To add extra weight, they filled the bucket with the heaviest rocks they could find. As a finishing touch, they painted it brown and black to look like wood, and put the ugliest mailbox we could find on sale on top, welding it down for good measure. They brought this monstrosity into class, more dragged it because it was so heavy, and told the professor to bury the bucket where the mailbox stood. Since they were the first to turn in their project, the professor agreed to give it a try. That night, the professor and his wife were awoken by a metallic bang, followed by a lot of yelling. They went outside, and wouldn't you know it, there was that red truck speeding away, the mailbox still standing. At the base was a broken wooden baseball bat. 2 days later, the professor gets a bill in the mail for a hospital visit. Turns out, when the passengers hit the mailbox, he did some serious damage to his arm and shoulder. They were planning on suing the professor, but the professor hired a lawyer who basically told the plaintiffs, "You're just going to admit that you were vandalizing the mailbox multiple times." That shut them up. To the best of my dad's knowledge, the mailbox is still standing. The other students, who still brought in mailboxes, had theirs gifted to different professors throughout the town and are also still standing. Am I the jerk for deleting my stepdad's World of Warcraft profile off of my account? I, 27 male, started a World of Warcraft account when I was 14. I had to pay for this completely on my own, as my parents only ever borrowed money from me and didn't return it. My stepdad got interested in the game and used my account to try it. He started playing 24/7. I rarely played because whenever he wasn't at work, he was playing and we only had one computer. I continued paying for my account so I could use it when he wasn't home. He pretty much took over my account and made tons of his own characters. When I asked him to chip in for the monthly membership, he'd tell me he was already putting a roof over my head. At 18, I went straight into the military and kept the subscription, though I was typically too busy to play. I made a new profile and he kept my old one, still on the same account, and he had to start paying for the profile he was using. The problem was that the account was under my name and email, so whenever he would have an issue, I would have to call Blizzard on his behalf to solve the problem. He would expect me to drop everything and solve it immediately. He once started blowing up my phone while I was driving through a snowstorm because he got locked out and would not wait until I was somewhere safe. Another time I was doing training and was out in the field for a week, and he kept badgering me. I got home after a week without bathing or decent sleep, and he harassed me until I agreed to call and fix it first. They would not let me transfer my account to him or add his name, and he refused to start from scratch on a new account that was just his. One of the issues was that the account was tied to my old email, which kept getting suspended due to inactivity. He one time set up two-step authentication, but refused to share the password he set for weeks, so I was also locked out of my own account. I warned him a bunch of times that I was tired of dealing with this, and he needed to start his own account. Probably not a surprise, I have gone low contact and have not spoken to them in 2 years. I got a single card from my mom around Thanksgiving. I canceled my own profile years ago. I randomly got a call from Blizzard asking for some info so they could reactivate my account. Lo and behold, my dad had them call me because he was locked out again due to the email getting suspended. He didn't even call me directly. I said forget it and told them no one else had permission to use my account and it was probably a hacker. I logged into my account and reset all the passwords and info, deleted his profile, and shut down the account. I also changed my phone number. Some of my friends thought this was hilarious and that he had plenty of chances to get his own account, but some of my other friends think it was harsh to destroy something he put thousands of hours into. Am I the jerk for deleting everything? Well, what do you think? Did OP take it too far, or did his stepdad get exactly what he deserved? Please let us know. I wonder if he was for the Horde or the Alliance. Party every night for a year? Okay. I bought a house 4 years ago in a quiet neighborhood. I had wanted to get into this neighborhood for years. My best friend lives there. It's a couple of blocks from my kid's school. It was a good neighborhood. Then lockdown hit. My neighbors across the street were forced to move at the beginning of lockdown before the eviction moratorium was in place. They were really good neighbors. We were friendly with each other and we were sad to see them go. So when the property owner rented to a new family, we were hoping we could cultivate a friendly relationship. Unfortunately, that was not the case. About a month after they moved in, the lockdown started, and that's when things went from 0 to 100 real quick. For the next year, every night there was a huge party. Cars down the street, music so loud you could hear it over regular house noise in every room in my house. My friend in the next cul-de-sac would text me regularly if the music he was hearing was my neighbor's. We tried to be civil. I asked politely, I brought them beer, I offered them other treats. Eventually, they threatened me and my wife, so we started calling the police. Almost every night for 4 months. We organized with the neighbors, and they started calling the police as well. Eventually, the others gave up and started selling their houses because the renters were just that bad. We were still upside down on our place, so it wasn't an option for us. Eventually, the police told me that I needed to stop calling and that it wasn't their issue to deal with, that I was a bigger nuisance than the renters' music. It was at that time that the housing market was taking off. Houses were selling in my area for $40 to $50K over appraised value. My wife and I looked at what we needed to make sure we could move and listed our home for that. In 3 days, we had a handful of amazing offers to choose from, but it was the lowest offer that stood out to us the most. Their offer was a good $20K under the next lowest, but they sent a letter. I'm a sucker for a letter, especially since it had a picture of the couple and their dog, and a patrol car. Turns out the young man is a police officer newly appointed with the local PD, and he takes his patrol car home. I knew at that point that this was the family to sell my house to. Money be darned. I moved out as the neighbors were throwing a huge party. The next day, the police moved in, and they haven't had another since. I drive by regularly on my way to my buddy's place. They just sit quietly in their garage looking bored. I make sure I honk and wave every time. Give my kid your insulin pump. So, I'm a type 1 diabetic. This means that my body doesn't produce any insulin and I have to get it from an external source. This source that works best for me is a pump, which is connected to my body. Without insulin, I would die. I can disconnect the pump for short periods to shower, change, etc., but 99% of the time it's connected to my body. I usually wear the pump on my waistband. This allows me to easily access it and make changes to my insulin as needed. I was over at my mother-in-law's house when my pump had an alert. My blood sugar was trending low, and this can be quite serious, so it's a loud and demanding alarm. I cleared the alert and grabbed a few fruit snacks to raise my sugars. My 5-year-old nephew heard the alert and asked me what it was, and I told him. I explained that it's a medical device that I wear to keep me healthy. He considers this and holds out his hand, demanding to see it. I refuse since it's a medical device that I need to live. Beyond that, he's not gentle with anything and breaks most of his toys very quickly. I tell him no again, and knowing that he rarely hears that word, move my pump from my waistband to clip it somewhere he can't grab it, which is absolutely what he would do. He starts crying and wailing, so his mother, my sister-in-law, comes running in. She screams at me, asking what I did. I just shrugged and said that I told him no, he couldn't have my insulin pump. She scoffed at me and told me to just hand it over. I can go without it for a little bit, and my nephew deserves to see it. I should be stimulating his natural curiosity instead of trying to hamper it. I refuse again and tell her to drop it. It's not going to happen. But he's just a kid. Now, I've dealt with him before, so I know that she's not going to be able to drop it. I say no to her kid, and that's unforgivable. I'm getting a headache from the screaming, so I just turned and left. I didn't need to be there anymore, so I went home. I'm sorry that I'm not willing to risk my health and well-being just to entertain your kid. Oh, wait, no, I'm not sorry. Caller threatens to send lawyers and police over our hotel rates. Hi, y'all. So happy I found this sub. I work at 2 hotels, and this story is from a few nights ago at the larger of the 2, which is in a franchise site in a beach vacation area. We're on a strip of highway with lots of other similar 3-star hotels, and all of these places set the same rates on a nightly basis, especially in the summer, which is our peak revenue season. So on this night, a woman calls around 6 p.m. asking how much we would be charging for a Friday night in early August. We tell her the rate for one night, which is almost $600. She instantly loses her mind over the phone and accuses my coworkers of ripping her off. Mind you, this lady hasn't actually made a reservation. After several minutes of back and forth with the caller getting increasingly hostile, Central Reservations actually disconnects her and apologizes. But that wasn't the end of things. Phone rings again and I answer. It's the same lady, this time calling directly. The call went something like this. Lady: hello, yes. I just spoke with your coworker at your hotel, and she had the nerve to tell me that one night cost $600. Me: yes, ma'am, that is correct. No, you listen to me. That is not correct. I work for the government, and my son works for your company, and there is no way it cost that much for one night. You are lying to me. She goes on a tangent here that I couldn't even understand, let alone repeat. Me: ma'am, we are a hotel near the beach. In the summer, we have very high prices for weekends because there is high demand. That's just how it is. Every hotel around us charges the same thing. No, be quiet. Listen to me. You are going to sell me a room for a normal price, or you are going to sell it for $600 and my lawyers will come to you and get all of my money back plus fees. So, it's your choice. Me: with all due respect, I don't understand why you're even trying to book our hotel if you dislike our rates. My lawyers are going to sue you. I'm going to report you to the news for what you've done to me. Me: okay, but our rate is what it is, and I don't think it's a good idea for you to stay here. Have a nice day. At this point, I hang up. She proceeds to call 10 times over the next hour, going on about working for the government and sending the police to raid us or to the news to expose us. Eventually, the two of us at the desk started answering, pretending to be a pizza place. But without caller ID, it became an issue not knowing if it was her calling or a normal person. Our manager came down to speak with her and ended the call after a few minutes by telling the crazy lady off very strongly in what I can only call a devastating power move. We got one more call after that where she asked me to confirm the rates we quoted so that she could pass the info on to her lawyers, the police, and the local news. Am I the jerk for not letting my flatmate use my printer to scan his schoolwork? I have a multi-purpose printer I use for work. I used to let my two flatmates use it whenever they needed to scan and print something within reason. They could print a few pages, but not color, pictures, or long essays. I used most of the ink for work, that's why I bought it, so a few pages didn't make a difference. The issue came when one of my flatmates ran out of ink when printing and didn't tell me. I found out there wasn't any ink in 3 days later while having to do a bunch of last-minute stuff. I told him that he should have told me that this is my work printer and I should find out about these kinds of issues when they happen, not when I need to use it for work. I expected him to apologize for not telling me and to say he forgot, hopefully promise he would next time. But instead, he got annoyed, saying that he hadn't done anything wrong since I was the one who used practically all of the ink. I tried to explain that the issue wasn't how much ink he used, but that he found it in working order and left it differently. And while it wasn't his fault the ink ran out, it was his duty and responsibility to tell me. The argument went on and he started yelling at me. So I told him that if he couldn't use it responsibly, he wasn't allowed to print anymore, since I couldn't be sure it wouldn't happen again. He called me selfish, petty, and a bunch of other less nice things. I hid in my room while he cooled down. But next day, he brought it up again, more calm, but still insisting that him not being allowed to use it was a vendetta and I was the jerk. I'm sure as heck not letting him use it until he understands he has to tell me if the printer runs out of ink. It's not a vendetta, but here's where I may be the jerk. Since he kept calling it a petty, childish thing, I said, if you want me to be petty, I won't let you use it at all. Not even for scanning, until you apologize. There's no harm in him scanning stuff. It's pretty impossible to mess it up, and he has to send scanned schoolwork often, so it's going to affect his studies. Maybe he's right that I'm being the jerk, but at the same time, I feel like he's not entitled to use my stuff when he doesn't respect it, nor me. I talked to some friends, and they're kinda split. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit with some extra info from the comments. I use refilled cartridges, so I can't know the real amount of ink left. And while I had a replacement, the printer smelled my rush and decided that the chip wasn't good enough and refused to work. Everyone knows when you have to print something last minute, everything's going to go wrong, and I don't blame him for that. That said, the entire discussion happened before I knew the new cartridge didn't work, and it had nothing to do about me printing stuff right then. It was entirely about my surprise that he hadn't said anything to me when the ink ran out, and him saying he didn't have to warn me and wouldn't do it if it happened in the future, because he wasn't the one using most of the ink. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their roommate? Please let us know. I'd kick that roommate out. They sound insufferable. Karen feels entitled to my inheritance because she's a single mom. I, 25 male, don't think what I said is bad, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong here. My sister, 26 female, met her boyfriend D 2 years ago. He's also 26, and let me just say, dude is a loser. He has 5 kids with 2 other women that he doesn't see, and since we've known him, he's been between jobs. My parents don't like him because my stepdad loaned him close to $2,000 and he never got repaid. My sister, being the genius that she is, decided she wanted to have a baby with him while she was still going to college because he promised to take care of her. It wasn't like this was a surprise pregnancy. She made a choice to actually have a kid with this guy. Everyone in my family practically screamed no, but she went ahead and got pregnant. Now she's all surprised Pikachu face when he broke up with her a month after my nephew was born, and he tells her he doesn't have money to help with the baby. My nephew is a year old. My sister is living in a studio and working full-time, no school either. A few times, she asks my parents for money. Thanks to my mom, she heard that my biological father has passed. Guy was very wealthy, so each of my half-siblings got a large amount of money. I haven't touched any of it because I don't want to go crazy. So the plan was to get in touch with a financial advisor. Point is, I'm not using that money for crap, and my sister is upset with me because I'm refusing to give her anything to help. She's not my biological dad's daughter, by the way, so that's why she didn't get a cut. Last time we fought, she told me she's struggling here, and I'm being a crappy brother to not help her out. Then I reminded her that she made the bad choice to be a mom with a deadbeat who wasn't going to help her. We all told her she'd be stupid to have a kid right now while she was in school with no career, and especially with a guy like him. And it's not my fault she made this dumb decision. She goes on complaining to my parents about it. Now my mom is getting mad at me for telling her that, because it's not my place to say something about her choices. I don't see how it was wrong pointing out a fact when she was getting mad at me for not helping her, like it's my fault that she's a single mom now. So I guess telling her that made me the jerk. But am I? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is his sister? Please let us know. Some people just can't handle the truth. I happen to be one of them. Do me over? I'd take away your promotion. For 18 months, I'd been working from home, as most of us had. From a work perspective, this has been great. I'd been more productive than when I was in the office, been able to get more flexible hours, and have saved a ton of money by not commuting. My workplace had an agreement that those working from home can do what hours they want, so long as we are able to answer urgent calls in core hours and get all of our work done. Fair enough as far as I'm concerned. For 16 months, this worked great, as above. Then, over a few weekends, I had a clear out of the house and took pictures of all the items that are in good condition but we no longer want, with the view of giving it away to whoever wants it. One day, when I'm working from home, I take my lunch break, make a quick sandwich, and post the items that I'm giving away on one of the local Facebook free pages. I didn't know it at the time, but one of the managers, called Shambles henceforth, from my work was also signed up to that page and he saw my post. He then took it upon himself to go to the owner of the company and tell him that I was slacking off and posting on Facebook during work hours. For context, this wasn't my boss, who was super chill as long as everything was done on time. Nor was the complaint to my boss, but to the owner of the company. We're a big business, so there's a lot of people in the chain of command between me and the owner. And to top it off, I'd been doing a lot of work for Shambles. He had outsourced the running of entire projects to me over the last 18 months, all of which I'd executed well and he had taken ample credit for. And this was the only time in 18 months I'd posted anything on Facebook, because I never post. So the owner contacted me, and to be fair, he's a decent guy. The conversation went like this. Owner: I've been told you're posting on Facebook during work hours. Just be smart about it. It doesn't look good when colleagues see it. Me: completely understand. Just so you know, I posted that during my lunch break. Owner: I was told you were posting at noon. The company lunch break is usually 1 to 2. Me: I did, but that's because when I'm home working, I always take my lunch 12 to 1. Owner: Okay, I don't have an issue with that. Just keep your head down. Like I said, a decent guy. I wasn't really in trouble, and the owner didn't seem to care. But then I started to think, wait, who the heck has gone to the owner with this in the first place? Long story short, a coworker who was working on site that day heard through the grapevine that Shambles had been complaining to the owner about me and how I'm always on social media when I should be working. I literally only have Facebook, and I only use that for Messenger 99% of the time. Cue petty revenge. As I said before, Shambles likes to outsource work to me. I never minded this. The work was varied and it broke the week up. Plus, my own boss didn't mind, as I always had my work for him done on time. However, I never got recognition for this extra work. For 2 years, I managed a sub-department completely on my own because he didn't have time to do it. I didn't get a penny more for it, but it was a good group of people and I enjoyed getting experience of management. Well, after this, every time Shambles came to me with an issue, I would say I was super swamped, but that I'd try to deal with it if I had time. The projects he tried to outsource to me, I immediately rejected, saying that I had a full plate from my actual job, and that sub-department I ran, we'll get to that. Over the next couple of months, Shambles starts missing his deadlines, issues come up with existing projects that he hasn't fixed, and employees are complaining that every time they go to him with an issue, it doesn't get resolved. It dawns on me at this point that I've basically been doing this guy's job for him for years. Forget that. I set up a meeting with my boss and put forward my argument for why I should be promoted, or really why I should have been ages ago. I point to all the projects I've successfully run, as well as the sub-department I've managed for 2 years. He completely agrees and says he'll take it to his boss. Now somehow, I don't know how, but when I go to the next meeting with my boss's boss, Shambles is there too. He's on the same level in the company as my boss's boss. A little phased, but not willing to give up, I put my arguments forward to them. Shambles lets me finish, then proceeds to tell me that I don't know enough about our work to manage. I don't have the required people skills, and then he tells me, and this is verbatim, "Besides, people here don't respect you. They respect me. I know I'm a good manager. If you really think about it, you know you wouldn't be." I forget what else was said after that, but I was completely destroyed. Boss's boss comes up to me afterwards and tells me that Shambles is a jerk, but unfortunately, he's got the approval of the higher-ups, so what he says has too much sway for him to go against him. I tell the boss's boss that if that's the way it is, I'm going to look for other employment. He sighs and says, "I don't blame you." Cue pro-revenge. During the time it took me to look for and apply to other jobs, I have time to think about how I can get back at Shambles. He's used me for years and is now blocking my promotion. I'd already stopped working on his stuff and his projects were going from bad to worse, but I needed something more. Now this next part could be an entire post on its own, so I've bulleted it for brevity. If you want more context, I can write it out later. 1. I'm an accredited internal auditor for our quality systems. 2. I ask if I can be assigned a couple of last audits before I leave to help them out. 3. I carry out these audits and using my intimate knowledge of Shambles projects, find every single issue I can. 4. A number of people also hate Shambles and give me more dirt on him. 5. Someone gives me breakthrough information that Shambles has been forging signatures and bypassing multiple companies' procedures to make his KPIs look better. 6. I write up the report with tons of evidence attached and send it off. 7. The report gets flagged at the highest level because of what it shows. 8. Shambles gets dragged over the coals. I wish I could say this story ends with Shambles getting fired and having to sell himself for scraps. But obviously, using all of the connections he has, he kept his job. I later found out though that he was due a massive promotion, as in catapulted to the top of the company, running whole divisions kind of thing. That never happened though. With his declining numbers, as well as a bad audit, showing all of his shortcomings, he's basically told he'll never progress beyond where he is and that he's lucky to have a job at all. He still works there, and I'm told his ego has been taken down a whole washing line worth of pegs. As for me, I'd love to say I got a better job with a massive raise. That's half true. I decided to pursue my dream job, literally since I've been a kid dream job. It's in a totally different industry. All the experience I had counted in my favor, and although I took a bit of a pay cut, I've never enjoyed work more. Oh, and that sub-department I was running, they knew that when I left, Shambles would take over running them again. So in my last month at the company, I gave them all tutorials on how to search for jobs and pass interviews. I'd worked in recruitment previously. I've heard from a number of them since that they had landed better jobs and thanked me in part for it. Not the perfect ending, but I'm darn happy with it. Make up a BS policy to appease the drama queen? Sure, I'll follow it. Many years ago, I worked in back office support in a large office with lots of departments. Generally speaking, we had core hours, especially for lunch. Core lunch hours were between 12 to 2, meaning you had to take your lunch sometime between 12 to 2. Different departments had different rules for lunch depending on their needs. For example, the call center had a strict rotation for when people could take their lunch since they needed constant phone cover. However, I was in back office support. Things were a lot more relaxed because we rarely took phone calls. Most of our work came in the form of tickets and tasks logged through our system and emails from other departments with general queries. The only requirement was that at least one manager and 2 members of staff had to be there at all times in case a colleague from another department needed to see us, or in an emergency, call us. So generally, we could take our lunch anytime we wanted, as long as it was between 12 to 2. There was no policy telling us when to take our lunch aside from the one I already mentioned. I would always take my lunch at 12:28. The reason was I actually wanted to take it at 12:30, but one of our call centers was the floor above us and they stampeded down the stairs at 12:30. I had been in an accident some years ago that gave me issues with my back and hips, so I could be a little unsteady on the stairs, so I left at 12:28 so I could avoid the call center stampede. I suppose I could have gone at 12, but the staff canteen was never set up and never had food ready at 12, hence why I left at 12:28. Now, I always restarted work at exactly 1:28, sometimes a few minutes earlier. An hour was far too long for me, so I was often back at my desk nursing a coffee while scrolling through my phone, which we were allowed to do as long as we were on break, by around 1 p.m. as well. However, if a colleague came to me and asked for help, I always helped and just added the time I was helping them to my lunch. So if I spent 10 minutes helping a colleague, I'd come back at 1:38. All this would be logged in our timesheet. I wasn't doing anything outside of policy. We were allowed to do this. Anyway, one of my colleagues had obviously noticed. Let's call her Mindy. Mindy considered herself the queen bee of the office. Everything had to be done her way. She was perfect, and she always tattled on people for petty stuff, like that one of our colleagues used too many staples, or that colleagues were literally a few minutes late, or took too many bathroom breaks. She literally had a tally of how many drinks and bathroom breaks everyone took so that she could tattle. She even once tried to tattle and say one of our colleagues came in drunk and she could smell it on her breath. What she could smell was Lemsip and cold meds. The colleague she was tattling on had a cold. Unfortunately, Mindy was also our manager's favorite employee, so she got away with a lot. So she tattles to our manager about how I'm always leaving for lunch 2 minutes early and yet often come back late. My manager tears me a new one for this. I explain to him that the times I come back late are when I've helped a colleague and he should see it logged on the sheet. I also explain why I leave at 12:28. He then says, "Yes, well, whether it's 2 minutes or not, we have core hours in the office." I say, "Yeah, 12 to 2. I can take my lunch anytime between 12 to 2. 12:28 is within these core hours." So he tried to say no. In our department, we have a policy of 12:30 to 1:30 to make sure enough people are in the department. I say, "I've never heard of this policy. This has never been the case." But he brushes me off and says, "You take your lunch at 12:30 and come back at 1:30. You don't deal with any queries or anything that will delay you. Just take your lunch on time and come back on time. No exceptions." Okay then, that's exactly what I'll do. No matter what I'm doing, even if I'm in the middle of a task, I get up and go to lunch. Even if I am at my desk and a colleague comes to me, I tell them I'm on lunch and tell them to come back later. Then, surprise, surprise, Mindy comes along with an urgent query at 1:10. I look her dead in the eye and say, "Sorry, I'm on lunch." She storms off to our manager to tattle on me. I get called into his office because she had lodged a complaint against me for bullying her and being uncooperative. Mindy is in the office with my manager acting as a mediator, and he asks why I refuse to help her. She's grinning maliciously with her trademark, "You're going to get it" face. She spoke to me at 1:10. I had 20 minutes left of lunch. "You said the policy is lunch 12:30 to 1:30. No exceptions," I said, smiling. Mindy looked like she wanted to slap me, and my manager was furious, but knew he couldn't do or say anything because that was what he had said. Eventually, the manager ended up being promoted and moved to another department. Our new manager has no patience for Mindy's excessive tattling and at one point shouted at her, "This isn't primary school, and I'm not your teacher. Go back to your desk and focus on your own work instead of everyone else." The new manager also rescinded the no exceptions BS policy my manager had made on the spot, and as long as we came back on time and didn't leave the department understaffed, she couldn't care less when we took our lunch. Won't fix your buggy software that costs us thousands of dollars per year? Fine, pay our bills then. I am the AV supervisor for a large company that hosts events. Specifically, I look after quotes for the technical side of corporate events, giving clients access to projectors, microphones, speakers, etc. for their large corporate presentations, meetings, and whatnot. I also manage and brief the floor crew who actively run the events. We use a program to book our equipment, which, while powerful, is a bit laggy on the average computer and is also extremely expensive per year. About $2,000 per user per year, and there's about 30 of us in the company that use it. Relative to how much our company makes per year, it's a pretty hefty cost. It's a good program when leveraged properly, but sometimes it can drive you mad with its weird way of doing things. One important feature of the program is that it tracks the booking of all equipment everywhere, including time for packing it into a room and packing it out of the room. This is useful because it prevents our team from overbooking equipment. If it's not available, the system won't let you book it. There's no way around that. If I am short on equipment, I can book extra equipment from another rental company and on-charge that to the client when I know in advance that I need to do that. Anyway, cue big presentation from the booking company showing their latest version of the booking software. It's great, it's faster, it's better than ever. We have a busy week coming up and I'm flat out floored with paperwork, pulling a 60-hour week. Our company is fantastic with overtime. We don't get overtime pay, but we do get time in lieu. Our bosses are totally cool about it, so if I work 1 hour overtime, I get 1 hour off the following week. Do a 60-hour week and you get 20 hours off later. Anyway, one of my floor crew comes to me. Floor crew, hey OP, this equipment isn't available. We've already got it out on another event. Me, what? It should be available. Floor crew, no, it's definitely not. I just set it up for another event 2 hours ago, and that event is running for 3 days. Cue me running back to my desk and rechecking all my paperwork. FYI, equipment lists going out for events is often over 100 lines long, hence why we don't do manual checks for overbookings. The system should do it. As it turns out, all of our equipment was overbooked multiple times, in many cases overbooked on 3 events or more. I make multiple phone calls to rental companies and bring in rental equipment on short notice. That's expensive, and I can't charge it to the client on such short notice. If you took our expected profits for that week, you could add a negative symbol onto the front, and that would be our new profit. I log a job with the company that makes our booking software and then proceed to double-check all of our upcoming events. Oh boy, a lot of overbooked equipment. Note, these events are often independently created by multiple people at different times of the year. There's no way they'd themselves check if the equipment was available. It's just not feasible. Hence why we rely on the system that up until now worked. The booking software company is extremely dismissive, saying that it's a rare glitch and that they'd look into it. Cue 1 month later and still no fix. I'm now spending significantly more time double-checking all of our events for overbooking. The booking software company still doesn't care about a smallish company like us. Frustrated, I ask my boss for a copy of our service agreement with the company. He's as annoyed with the situation as I am, so we go through it together. Turns out there's a clause in there saying that the booking company would provide compensation in the event of total system failure, in the event that the system can't even be accessed. Well, we'd definitely call this a system failure, of sorts. Its failure is costing us a lot of money. So we send the bills of our rentals that cover overbookings to the booking software company. That gets their attention quickly when their total bill amounts to more than triple how much they make off of us each year. Booking software company, hey OP, what's with these bills? Me, here's the job reference you still haven't responded to after 2 months now. And here's the link between each rental and each event that's overbooked. Booking software company, there's no way the system is letting you overbook equipment, and you can't send the bills to us for every event that's overbooked. Me shares the screen. All right, let's test it. The booking software company shares their screen as well, logging into our version of the booking system. They proceed to book some equipment that should 100% not be available. True to their word, the system doesn't let them do it. I then book the exact same equipment on the exact same event, but from my computer. My boss has a witness, the system lets me do it without any alarm. This surprises them, and they start talking about potential fixes. They also say they're willing to pay for the rentals up until now. 2 months later, we're still billing them for every rented equipment. They're still paying without questioning, and we still don't have a fix. I've changed the procedures to check for overbooked equipment though, so we aren't running around like madmen trying to fix things last minute anymore. Other hotel calls to warn me about incoming hotel critic. 2 years ago on a morning shift, I got a call from another hotel not too far away. "Hi, this is Jessica from whatever hotel. We had a hotel critic here last night, and on checkout, she mentioned she has a reservation with you tonight. I wish we had had some warning about this, so I'm doing you the courtesy. Pay it forward if you can. Her name is Mysterio, and she was quite nitpicky about this, that, and the other." I thanked her profusely, warned my MOD and my accommodation manager, and moved on with my life. I knew they would upgrade her to a nicer room and throw in a breakfast and maybe a fruit bowl, etc. We weren't a fancy place. There wasn't a whole lot we could do. The next morning, I came in at 7 a.m. and read the handover notes. Mysterio has been a non-stop pain all last evening. Nothing was good enough for her, and she hassled everybody left, right, and center about everything. She ran up to me at the desk as soon as the NA left. She complained that nobody would act on her noise complaints last night, no matter how many times she complained. She demanded free spa treatments, free lunch, a refund on her dinner last night, the works. I apologized and assured her I'd look into it. While she was eating her breakfast, the accommodation manager rang me to say there was a dog barking from inside the door of one of the rooms. Pets were not allowed in our hotel. Guess whose room it was? I said thanks, I'll deal with it. I also saw in the notes from the NA that all 4 noise complaints made last night had been about her room. No other rooms had been mentioned. Mysterio came back to the desk to see if I had any update on her complaints. I informed her we had heard a dog in her room this morning. She denied it and said I was being ridiculous. I said I will double check the room number with the accommodation manager straight away, and if I'm wrong, very sorry. I checked it while she stood in front of me. It was of course her room. She called me a nasty young lady and stormed up to her room. About 10 minutes later, she comes downstairs and says I have something against those with disabilities. I was like, what? She says the dog in her room was a therapy animal for her daughter who's disabled. I asked, is your daughter staying with you? She says yes. I said she's not on your reservation. She said her daughter doesn't like to meet people. I asked, does she have paperwork for her service dog? And she says, how dare you, etc. A half-hour argument followed where I was informed that I was very biased and I have no heart, and I, personally, would be hearing from her solicitors very soon. Again, she stormed away. She left without officially checking out an hour later. The MOD approached my desk and said, what the actual heck? We bent over backwards for her last night. Call that whatever hotel and see what they thought of her. You all know what happened next. I called the whatever hotel and asked to speak to Jessica. Of course, there's nobody there called Jessica. Mysterio did me over, and her room had to be put out of order for a week due to dog doo-doo. Mysterio did me over, and her room had to be put out of order for a week due to the doggy doo. Am I the jerk for pointing at the kitchen when my mother-in-law asked, where is our dinner? My husband had a serious injury weeks ago. He's bedridden and his family come to see him every day. Mother-in-law keeps drilling what I need to do to make my husband comfortable, but does nothing to help. Just visits every day and sits around expecting to be fed and entertained. Sometimes brother-in-law, his wife and kids join them and turn the house into a mess. Yesterday, mother-in-law, her husband and son come again. They checked on my husband, then went to sit in the living room for hours. I served them coffee and croissants. Hours later, my husband threw up again, second time. I had to take care of changing his clothes and cleaning the sheets to avoid infections. I was exhausted. I came downstairs and mother-in-law looked at me and asked, hey, where's our dinner? I was shocked that after seeing me go upstairs many times and cleaning and bringing new sheets and running the washing machine that she'd expect me to prepare dinner. I'd already eaten a sandwich at 6 and yogurt. I have problems with my stomach and stress, and pregnancy made it worse. I'm 4 months in. I pointed at the kitchen and told her to help herself out. She gave me a look, then said she didn't expect me to ask her to cook dinner at my house. I said I didn't expect her to ask me to cook dinner while I'm taking care of her son. She started arguing about the way I spoke about my husband, saying as his partner, "This is the least I could do," and called me unhinged for throwing in her face that I'm helping my husband. She got her husband involved, asking what his thoughts were on me making guests go hungry and forcing them to cook themselves when this was supposed to be my duty as a host/homeowner. Father-in-law said they could order food and call it a day and yelled at my younger brother-in-law to stop playing on his phone and order food. But mother-in-law got mad and lashed out, criticizing me, saying I wasn't up to the challenge of taking care of my home and my guests like an adult. I lost it on her and told them to leave since she kept yelling, disrupting my husband's sleep. She left after, saying she felt sorry for her son and grandbaby with an aggressive wife and mother like me. She told everyone, and my older brother-in-law said he understood I'd had a lot on my plate, but lectured me about how I should have respect for his mom who was a guest, repeatedly saying that if it was his wife, she wouldn't have acted this way, and that I shouldn't use taking care of my husband against them. He asked me to apologize, but I didn't. Info: my husband suffers from 2 major injuries and he's got a long recovery ahead. Right now, there's so much pressure to take care of him while keeping up with the house chores and work. My mom and sister help, but not mother-in-law. She claimed that when I told them to leave, I was refusing to let her see her sick son, but I'd never do that. I've lost a loved one before, so I understand her fear, but brother-in-law thought that was my goal. Edit: I live in the States, in the South. My mother steals my things when I don't listen to her. I'm 26 and she lives in the house that I pay for. About a year ago, me and wife bought our own house after saving up for quite a while, and we were able to get a 2-story, 3-floor house, 2 floors above with a basement. We then renovated and moved in shortly after. About a month after we were completely done moving in, my mother lost her job and couldn't continue to pay for her own house, so I told her that she could live with me and my wife and live in the basement, which has a bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and living room, so it's basically its own house. I didn't make her pay bills or anything, just because she's my mom. Recently though, she's been asking me to clean her dishes, vacuum the basement for her, and clean my office space, which she doesn't even need to be in. It's on the 3rd floor, which I specifically told her to not go up there. I then tell her that I don't need to clean her things, or mine for her, and remind her that she lives down there and she should clean her downstairs and that I will clean the upstairs whenever I want to. When I tell her though, she gets extremely upset and steals my things. The first time it was my car keys, then my TV remote, and now my keyboard and mouse from my PC, which I need for work, which she stole after she told me to clean my office, and which I then told her no, and that it's my house and my rules. I asked her for my keyboard and mouse back, but she simply yelled at me and kept the door to the basement shut and locked. After that, I unlocked the door with the keys that I had for the house, but she started to push the door shut on me. I just continued to push the door open until I was through the door and was in the basement, which she then fell and threatened to call the police on me. I grabbed my keyboard and mouse and then went upstairs without a word. It's the morning after now, and I still am not entirely sure what to do. I don't even know if I want to talk to my mother right now. Edit: after all of the kind and helpful comments and some discussion with my wife, I will be installing a lock on our side of the door to the downstairs, so mother cannot come upstairs and do anything until me or my wife open the door. And if anything happens again, we will be kicking her out and sending her to an elderly home. You gonna lock her down there? Edit 2. For everyone asking if I'm locking my mother in the basement, no, she will only be locked from the upper floors of the house. There is a door directly to the basement from the outside, and she can come and go whenever she wants. She just can't access where me and my wife live. Edit 3. My mother is not a tenant. I simply allowed her to live downstairs, so I exactly wouldn't need to evict her, just kick her out. Am I the jerk for cleaning out the fridge without telling my husband? My husband brought home a metal box that he checks on often during the day when it's in the fridge. When asked about it, he said it contained freshly picked olives his friend Jason got him from his uncle's farm and wanted husband to keep until he gets back from his business trip. I had no problem with him keeping it safe at the bottom of the fridge. Husband always asks me to be cautious with the box and not open it, as it would be rude to touch other people's stuff. Yesterday, I decided to clean out the fridge, which took me almost 2 hours, from unplugging the fridge, emptying all the items, groceries, vegetables, and containers, and washing and cleaning out the inside of it, then letting it sit before plugging it back in again. I took the box my husband brought out the fridge and placed it on the kitchen island alongside other containers. While I was working, I received a video call via WhatsApp from my husband while at work, feeling bored, asking what I was doing. I showed him I was cleaning out the fridge, and he suddenly freaked out and asked about the metal box. I was confused, so I told him to calm down and showed him where the box was. He got mad, telling me I shouldn't have cleaned out the fridge nor even touched the box without telling him. I again tried to ask him to calm down, as I saw no big deal with that. His precious box was safe and sound, but he went on a rant about how the box needed to be put back inside the fridge ASAP and told me to plug the fridge in right then and there, but I couldn't because it was wet and I still wasn't finished with cleaning other parts. Apparently, I upset him by stalling and he hung up, and 30 minutes later he came home and he threw a fit, saying I should have picked a time where he was at home to clean out the fridge so he could take the box somewhere else to keep it cool. I said, so what, it was sitting out the fridge for barely 2 hours, and olives can stand being outside the fridge for longer periods of time. He said, I don't get it, and took the box he wanted and left with it. I asked where he was taking it, and he said he needed to go back to work and had no time to explain. I shrugged this whole thing off, but he came back with it in the evening and put it inside the fridge, then complained about me cleaning the fridge without telling him and for acting dismissive of his opinions.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.